At 12:43 on a weekday, a customer entered the cafe as usual. The worker greeted the customer, who requested an iced Americano with an extra shot. The worker noted that the customer came in at the same time every day, though she didn't know his name or age. However, today, she realized she had developed a crush on him. Her friend suggested that she should ask for his number, but the worker, named Yoon, hesitated. She felt unsure about approaching him in that way, fearing that it might make him uncomfortable. Her friend reassured her, mentioning that it was common these days, even when taking orders, to ask someone out if they frequented the same place. The friend encouraged Yoon to show that she remembered him, especially since he always ordered the same thing. Yoon was still uncertain, recalling that she had read somewhere that some people could be offended by such advances, potentially leading them to stop visiting the cafe. She feared that if she asked him, he might never come back. Her friend, however, pointed out that she had been crushing on him for so long and suggested she might regret not asking. Yoon reflected on a time when someone else had encouraged her to ask her own crush out, and she hadn't had any issues with it back then. But now she thought it might be better to just keep having a crush on him rather than act on it. Her friend agreed that sometimes having a crush could be just as fun. Despite her hesitation, Yoon found small joy in these daily moments. She noted that they might be running out of beans and asked her friend to check. This little joy was enough to keep her going. Suddenly there was a loud noise and someone was hit. Yoon heard people calling 119, trying to help the injured person. She felt paralyzed, unable to move, and began to panic, thinking she might die like this. There were so many things she still wanted to do, like asking the customer out. Just then, a voice spoke to her, saying it would give her another chance at life, under one condition. Yoon, confused, asked who was speaking. The voice explained that she would be given another chance to try again, but only if she chose one of 3 wishes it offered. Yoon, still in disbelief, was told that if she failed to fulfill her wish within 100 days, the voice would return to claim her life. At first, she was shocked by the impossible offer. Yoon woke up suddenly, hearing the alarm bell. She realized it was winter when she had been hit by a car, but now she was back at the cafe, 100 days before the accident. She wondered if the events had been a dream, though they felt far too real to dismiss. Still unsure, she chose to go on with her daily routine. Her friend greeted her, commenting on how cold it had become in the mornings, and teasing her for looking like she might be crying. Yoon denied it, saying something must have gotten into her eyes. Her friend offered eye drops, but Yoon declined, saying it was fine now. She went to make a cappuccino and told her friend to go change. As Yoon continued with her routine, she tried to dismiss the earlier experience as a dream, telling herself that what mattered was that she was alive and could continue her normal life. Most importantly, she would be able to see the customer again. Then, Yoon's co-worker, Jihye, remarked about the customer, who was wearing all black and almost seemed like the Grim Reaper. Yoon was startled by the comment and worried what if he overheard. It seemed odd, but maybe it was just a coincidence. The customer ordered a caramel macchiato with extra whipped cream, and Yoon quickly complied. However, as she was preparing the order, the customer spoke again, revealing that he had a message for her about her life. Yoon was stunned. He then explained that she had been given a second chance, 100 days to fulfill a wish she had before she died. She was to choose one of 3 envelopes, each containing a different wish, and if she failed to achieve it, he would come to take her life once the 100 days were over. Yoon, overwhelmed, couldn't believe what she was hearing. The customer, whom she now realized was the Grim Reaper, reassured her that she didn't need to be scared, as he wasn't there to take her yet. But he told her to choose one of the wishes and handed her the envelopes. Yoon was left in shock, unable to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Yoon was in disbelief as she processed the Grim Reaper's words. She had been told that her life was being turned back by 100 days, but if she failed, she would die again. It all felt too unreal, but the pain in her cheeks confirmed that this wasn't a dream. The Grim Reaper standing before her reassured her that this was indeed real. Yoon, still struggling to grasp the situation, found it hard to believe that she was seeing the Grim Reaper casually drinking a caramel frappuccino with extra whipped cream. She expressed her confusion, questioning how such an impossible situation could be real. The Grim Reaper asked what was wrong, and Yoon responded, admitting that it was hard to accept that she hadn't been dreaming after all. She remembered the pain she felt from the accident, but her memories had become blurry. She couldn't understand if it was all just a prank. The Grim Reaper explained that they had made her forget her previous life to ensure fairness, as she needed to relive her last 100 days. He mentioned that it was the rule of the great Yomra, the ruler of the underworld. Yoon sarcastically wondered if remembering the winning lottery numbers would have been helpful. Then she asked why she was brought back to life at all. The Grim Reaper responded that the great Yomra enjoyed watching TV dramas and had been moved by one in which a human struggled. It was then that Yomra granted Yoon's wish. Yoon, still trying to understand, was astounded by the idea that her life had become like a TV drama. The Grim Reaper reassured her that the important part was that she was alive. Yoon agreed, admitting that was all that mattered. The Grim Reaper then presented Yoon with 3 envelopes, instructing her to pick one. Yoon chose one at random, deciding to just close her eyes and pick. The Grim Reaper encouraged her to open the envelope. Inside, Yoon found the Chinese character for love, confirming it was exactly what it appeared to be. She asked the Grim Reaper for an explanation, and he revealed that he had overheard her having a crush on someone. Yoon, surprised, asked how the Grim Reaper knew. He explained that they had heard her, and that all she needed to do was confess her feelings and go out with her crush within 100 days. If she failed, she would die. Yoon, in disbelief, questioned how the Grim Reaper could impose such a condition. The Grim Reaper, having delivered the message, prepared to leave. Yoon, still processing the situation, stopped him and asked if he could return the next day. She offered him a drink on the house, anticipating she would have many more questions for him. The Grim Reaper agreed to come back and introduced himself as Chae Yoon. Yoon, still overwhelmed, introduced herself as Yoon Jae-yi, feeling as though she had just encountered a ghost. Over the next few days, Yoon struggled with her new reality. She tried to focus on the basics, like asking her friend Jihye if she wanted to get something to eat the following day. Still, she couldn't help but feel like she was about to lose her mind. She tried to summarize everything in her head, realizing just how crazy it all sounded. She had to confess her feelings and start dating someone, but Yoon had never done that before. She had only ever had crushes, and once went out with someone because they had asked her out. Now, she was facing the prospect of dying if she didn't manage to start a relationship. Yoon was frustrated by the situation. She thought about how her fingers had failed her, wishing she had been able to do better. She couldn't understand why she had to die again. This would be the second time, but she had no memory of the first death. Surprisingly, she didn't feel like she was suffering from any PTSD, though the experience must have been horrible. She thought about how she might prefer to be reaped by the Grim Reaper's scythe rather than deal with this bizarre task. She speculated that the other 2 choices might have been easier than this one. Yoon considered the idea of becoming rich within 100 days, but that felt equally absurd. As she thought more, she realized she still had so much she wanted to do, like meeting her sister's baby, turning her cafe into a chain, and celebrating her parents' 60th birthday. She didn't want to die again. She wondered why the great Yomra, the god of the underworld, couldn't just let her live. The thought of the great Yomra only watching dramas terrified her. She mumbled the name Raun before falling asleep. Chae, the Grim Reaper, questioned who she was talking to, but Yoon was alone. Yoon woke up feeling disoriented and groggy, wondering if she had managed to crawl back into bed the previous night. She was also curious about a strange humming sound she had heard. Her friend, noticing Yoon's condition, joked about dying while making espresso. Yoon, trying to cheer her friend up, told her to take some macarons or cake on her way out, treating her for a job well done. Her friend asked about Yoon's hangover, to which Yoon replied that she had cured it with a triple shot of coffee. Concerned, her friend asked if her stomach could handle it, and Yoon assured her it was fine, adding that she would take a piece of cake before leaving. Yoon's thoughts drifted back to Mr. Chae. She wondered when he would arrive, and just as she was thinking about it, he walked in. Yoon greeted him, telling him to take a seat wherever he liked, and that she would bring his drink shortly. She noted that he seemed to have a fondness for sweets, offering him the cake while mentioning that she wasn't fond of sweets herself. Che took the cake and asked if it was okay for Yoon to be out front since there was no one behind the counter. Yoon reassured him that it was fine, explaining that the cafe wasn't busy at the moment and that it was usually quieter after lunchtime, with the busiest hours being in the morning and during lunch. Che asked if Yoon had spoken to her crush yet. Yoon explained that she hadn't, as she had been hung over and didn't want to reek of alcohol. Che teasingly remarked that he had known she had been drinking too much. He reminded her that she had only 99 days left to fulfill her task, implying that her delay meant she now had 98. Yoon corrected him, stating that she still had 99 days, and then changed the subject, deciding to ask him something. She hesitantly brought up the envelope she had picked, asking if she really had to date her crush within 100 days, or if it could be someone else. She confessed that her feelings weren't entirely within her control, and that she wondered if the condition would still be fulfilled if she ended up falling for someone else. Che told her he would check on that and get back to her. He added that rejection was a possibility she should keep in mind, which Yoon found unnecessary to hear, but thanked him anyway. She quickly clarified that she wasn't suggesting she would fall for someone else just to survive. She had always been good at having a secret crush for a long time. Che, seemingly amused, wondered if she was bragging about that. Yoon continued, recalling a time when she had a crush for a long while, but Che cut her off, asking for more cake in exchange for doing her a favor. Yoon agreed to get him some macarons as well, to which Che happily agreed, asking for chocolate cake. Yoon then checked the fridge and freezer, calculated all the bills, and placed a new supply order. At that moment, she heard a familiar voice, her crush's voice. She froze, realizing he had just walked in. He apologized for startling her, assuring her that he wasn't a creep. Yoon, flustered, immediately recognized him and called out his usual order, an iced Americano with an extra shot, realizing too late that she should have simply acknowledged him as a regular instead of blabbering. Her crush confirmed that he was the one who always ordered the iced Americano with an extra shot, and explained that he had been planning to say hi since he was a regular, but he was sorry if he had made her uncomfortable. Yoon quickly reassured him that it was fine. Her crush then asked if she was about to go home, and Yoon explained that she always closed up shop around that time. She realized that this was her chance to say something, but before she could, her crush said he would see her tomorrow for his usual order and wished her good night. Yoon, still overwhelmed, said goodbye to him as he left. After he left, Yoon excitedly reflected on finally speaking to him about something other than his usual order. It felt like a small victory, and she was thrilled. Che, however, scolded her, pointing out that she should have told him her name. Yoon had been feeling like she was down on her luck, but she started to realize that there were still some good things left in her life. She couldn't help but wonder if her future was changing, and whether that was okay. She reminded herself that for her to survive, her future had to change. With 98 days left, she resolved to do her best, though she didn't yet know what awaited her. As she thought about what to have for dinner, Yoon considered ordering something, though she decided to skip the booze. She wished she had a private chef to make things easier. Later, her sister Jaeha greeted her with a warm welcome home, saying she had come to have dinner with her. Yoon was surprised, asking why Jaeha hadn't called. Jaeha explained that her husband was coming to pick her up later, and she had come to check on Yoon after she had been acting strangely the previous day. Yoon, feeling emotional, hugged her sister and promised to be a great aunt to the baby. Jaeha, in her usual manner, reminded Yoon to be a good aunt and not mess up the book at the shop. She then handed Yoon some food to take to the tables. Yoon complimented Jaeha on her cooking, saying she was jealous of her husband for having such a talented wife. Jaeha humbly dismissed the praise, but was interrupted by a call from her husband. Yoon, seeing how much he cared, remarked that he was just worried about her. After finishing dinner, Jaeha asked if Yoon was okay, and Yoon affirmed that she was fine. Jaeha then mentioned that she was planning to spend some more time with Yoon and added that Raon was coming back to Korea. She also shared that Aunt Jung had suggested they all have a meal together when he returned, giving Yoon a heads up. Suddenly, Yoon's memories flashed before her eyes. She was shocked and confused, wondering why Raon was coming back. She questioned whether this was part of the 100-day period before her accident. At that moment, Che appeared, surprising her. He asked what she was doing standing by the door. Yoon, still startled, asked when he had arrived, and he replied that she needed to be quiet because her sister might come in through the front door. Yoon was confused, realizing that she didn't remember opening the door for him. Che casually mentioned that, as a Reaper, he didn't need anyone to open the door for him. It was his job to enter people's homes. Yoon, still alarmed, argued that it felt like breaking and entering, especially since she was still alive. She asked where he had been the previous day, and Che explained that he had been watching over her and had safely carried her back to bed when she was asleep. Yoon, still upset, scolded him for entering a woman's home without permission, but Che, unbothered, explained that it was part of his assignment to keep watch over her 24 hours a day. Yoon tried to lighten the mood, inviting him inside and offering him a drink, specifically some milk. Chi, however, had come to deliver a message about Yoon's earlier question. He confirmed that she didn't have to fall in love with a specific person, as she had wondered. Yoon was surprised at how quickly she received an answer and thanked him. Che, noticing her curiosity, asked why she hadn't asked for her crush's name earlier. Yoon, slightly embarrassed, realized that he had been watching her and confirmed that it was part of his assignment. Then, Che asked Yoon if it was okay for her future to change. Yoon, deep in thought, confessed that while she didn't remember much of her life before the accident, she had never had a personal conversation with her crush before. This time, though, that had changed, and she wondered if it was okay for things to be different. She was concerned about the possible butterfly effect and what it might mean for her fate. Che assured her that it was perfectly fine. He explained that if she continued her 100 days exactly as she had before, she would die, and that her timeline had already changed the moment she picked the envelope. The change was irreversible, like spilled milk. Yoon's fate and the lives of everyone around her would unfold differently from now on. That, Chai said, was the only way for her to change her future. Yoon, now understanding, realized that Raon's return to Korea was no coincidence. It must have been because her fate had already shifted. Che, not understanding the significance, asked who Raon was. Yoon replied that Raon was her first crush. Che asked Yoon if she still had feelings for her first crush, Raon. Yoon quickly denied it, but Che pressed her further, wondering what it was then. Yoon tried to explain, though she couldn't quite put it into words, saying that while she didn't have lingering feelings for him, there was definitely something about him that she couldn't explain. Che, though skeptical, accepted her answer and agreed that Raon was indeed her first crush. Yoon admitted that there was a time when she constantly worried about whether she would ever stop liking him. Meanwhile, Yoon's friend commented that it seemed like the boss was doing well, to which Yoon confirmed that she was doing fine and had even wanted to treat them to dinner someday. Yoon couldn't help but feel guilty for not telling her friend that she had ended up talking to one of their regular customers, as she knew her friend would be upset for not asking his name. As if on cue, her crush entered the cafe and greeted her. Yoon felt embarrassed to see him again and greeted him awkwardly. He ordered his usual drink, and she handed it to him, still nervous about how she sounded. He then introduced himself as Kim Woobin, explaining that he hadn't mentioned his name the day before because she had seemed in a hurry. Yoon introduced herself as Yoon Jae, and he promised to see her again next week. After he left, Yoon's friend, clearly excited, bombarded her with questions, asking what had happened overnight. Yoon tried to downplay it, claiming there was nothing to it, but her friend insisted that it could only mean one thing. He was definitely interested in Yoon, especially since he had given her his name. Her friend joked that she now understood why he kept coming to the cafe. Yoon replied that it was simply because the cafe was the closest to his office, but her friend wasn't convinced, teasing her for being so timid. Yoon found herself wondering if her friend was right, if maybe he really was interested in her. The possibility made her feel hopeful, and she decided she would tell Che about it. Yoon imagined that Che would probably dismiss her excitement, but still, the thought of telling him made her feel a little lighter. She had been anxious and scared since she had been brought back to life, and longed for some kind of confirmation, like seeing status windows, something she had read about in web novels. She felt envious of the returnees who seemed to have everything figured out. But now, for the first time in a while, she felt like there might be a chance for her. Meanwhile, Raon was on the phone with Madame Young, confirming his arrival at the airport after his luggage had been delayed. Young asked him which exit he was at, and he promised to let her know. She assured him it was no trouble, mentioning that it had been 4 years since he last visited, and that this was the least she could do. Raun, after hearing that, reflected on the time that had passed, remembering how long it had been since he last saw Yoon. He sighed, missing her, and muttered to himself, "I miss you, Jae." Chai congratulated Yoon for learning her crush's name, adding that he must be a little interested in her as well. He mentioned that he had been worried because he couldn't visit during the day, but now he felt relieved. Yoon asked if he had been busy, and Che explained that he had work to take care of. Yoon then teased him, asking if his job was just to watch over her. Che quickly denied it, saying it was too much of a bother. Yoon, curious, asked what he needed to hurry up and get, but Che just told her not to sneak up on him, noting that she had managed to sneak up on a Reaper, which was impressive. Yoon, looking amused, said it was because he had been zoning out. Che then asked if she was done for the day, and Yoon confirmed that she was just locking up the place. Che asked if she was headed home, but Yoon responded with excitement, saying she was going out on a date. Later, Chaewon greeted her happily, expressing disbelief that she finally managed to escape work to meet Yoon on a Friday. Yoon thought to herself that she was grateful to be alive again to see her friend. She thanked K-drama for this chance and offered to treat Chaewon to something nice. Chaewon, though, insisted on paying for the meal, saying that was why she worked overtime, to enjoy good things like dinner. Yoon smiled and agreed. The conversation then turned to Raon, Yoon's first crush, and Chaewon was surprised to hear that he was returning to Korea. Yoon, slightly embarrassed, asked her not to call him that. Chaewon teased her, pointing out that it was true, and asked if Raon had been studying abroad. Yoon confirmed that he had, but Chaewon noted that he should have visited at least once or twice in the past 4 years. Yoon explained that he never did, and she admitted that this made her nervous. Chaewon understood, but reminded her that 4 years was plenty of time to sort out her feelings. Yoon assured her that she had taken care of it long ago. Chaewon, however, teased her, saying that Yoon now had a new crush, to which Yoon reacted with embarrassment. As they prepared to leave, Chaewon insisted that she couldn't let Yoon, as a small business owner, pay for dinner. Yoon reminded her that she was just starting her job too, and that it was her sister who owned the cafe. Chaewon laughed and said it didn't matter since Yoon always gave her free stuff when she visited. Yoon, however, pointed out that Chaewon hardly had time to visit anymore. She then realized she had forgotten to bring the cake she was supposed to give to her brother-in-law the next day. Chaewon offered to go with her, but Yoon refused, saying Chaewon must be tired from living far away. Chaewon told Yoon to take care and text her when she got home safely. After they parted ways, Yoon was relieved to have met Chaewon so close to the cafe. However, she felt a bit scared since it was late. Just then Che appeared, and Yoon, startled, asked why he kept sneaking up on her. He explained that it was a force of habit, but pointed out that she was headed in the direction of the cafe. Yoon revealed that she had forgotten something and was going to pick it up. Che insisted that she should have been more thorough, then suggested they hurry. Yoon was surprised to hear that he was going with her, and he explained that it was dangerous for her to go alone. Yoon couldn't understand him, but asked if he wanted something to eat when they got there. Che declined, saying he was fine but would take something next time. He then pointed out that someone was standing in front of the cafe. Yoon, feeling a sudden rush of nervousness, asked if it was Raon. To her shock, Raon stepped forward and hugged her, calling her name. Yoon's thoughts immediately drifted back to Chaewon's question. Did she ever figure out a way to stop liking Raon? Yoon recalled that she and Raon had first met at the hospital, as they were born just a day apart. While most people might have drifted apart over the years, their bond remained strong. Raon's mother had often expressed a wish that Yoon were her daughter, and because of this, Yoon and Raon practically grew up together, almost like siblings. Their fathers also became good friends. Raon's mother once asked Yoon where she had gotten a pretty dress, and Yoon explained that her aunt had bought it for her. Yoon's own mother, however, was not pleased with her sister's frequent gifts, pointing out that kids grow out of clothes too quickly. Raon's mother, on the other hand, defended herself, saying that she bought clothes for Raon anyway, so it didn't matter. She added that she wouldn't have had the chance to buy clothes for a girl if it weren't for Yoon. Yoon's mother, though, promised to buy toys for Raon the next time they met. Raon, in turn, explained that her mother had said she was also buying things for Yoon because Yoon was going to marry Raon when they grew up. Raon's mother even called it an investment in the future. Yoon's mother was taken aback, but Raon's mother just laughed it off. Raon innocently clarified that it meant she and Yoon would always live in the same house. Yoon couldn't help but wonder if her aunt's constant remarks about marriage had contributed to her feelings for Raon. After all, Raon had been beautiful and well-mannered even as a child, traits that drew children to her. Yoon admitted that, while she hadn't had feelings for him at the time, she realized in middle school that she had developed a crush on Raon. Chae, listening closely, asked if that meant Yoon had liked him since they were little, but Yoon quickly denied it, saying that children didn't understand love. They had attended different elementary and middle schools, so Yoon had been fine with it. However, they ended up at the same high school, and that was when her first love came to an end. Chae asked if Yoon had confessed her feelings, but Yoon revealed that she never did. Chae then asked why it ended, and Yoon explained that she had overheard Raon saying something that crushed her. Raon had said, "I know there's something going on between you and Yoon." But then, he followed it up with, "No way, man. Jae is like a younger sister to me." Yoon admitted that it had been a tough moment, especially since she was in her senior year. She felt embarrassed sharing this with Chae. She recalled how Raon had dismissed her feelings by calling her like a younger sister. As Yoon reflected on this, she was suddenly interrupted by Raon's voice. He had flown back to Korea that day, and after taking a nap to recover from jet lag, he had woken up too late to visit. Yoon noted that the cafe had closed at 7 p.m., but Raon had still wanted to come by, and luckily, he had run into her. Yoon, clearly annoyed, called him an idiot for coming so late. Raon, however, seemed unfazed and addressed her as Jae again. Just then, Chae appeared, and Raon asked who he was. Yoon, startled, remembered Mr. Chae and quickly explained that she was meeting a friend. But he had left something at the cafe, so she had to open the door for him before heading home. Raon said he had plans and needed to leave, but told Mr. Chae that he would see him around. Chae, watching the interaction, thought to himself that there was no way Raon viewed Yoon as a younger sister based on the way he had looked at her. Yoon, somewhat embarrassed, tried to redirect the conversation by calling out to Mr. Chae, asking if he had been listening to her. Chae, acting as if he hadn't heard her, asked her to repeat what she had just said. Yoon then asked if she had seemed awkward earlier, to which Chae reassured her that it hadn't been noticeable. Yoon confessed that she had been really nervous, to which Chae remarked that it was quite obvious. He advised her that it was always good to have a backup plan in situations like these. Chae then commented that things seemed to be going better than expected and teasingly asked if Yoon was planning to drink a ton and then sleep there. Yoon quickly denied this, explaining that she never drank that much. There was a conversation happening between a couple of voices, with one voice commenting on someone sleeping. The other voice responded, mentioning that they had heard the person had been called in for an emergency late last night. The first voice then pointed out that it was daytime, to which the second voice suggested that they should leave the person alone and not disturb him while he was sleeping. The first voice retorted, saying that the person looked the way they did because the second voice always let them off the hook, referring to something that had happened with Yoon. The second voice responded defensively, denying any wrongdoing. Chae, waking up, interrupted the conversation, asking them to stop arguing. She mentioned that they hadn't been called in today and asked why they had come. A girl, irritated, pointed out that Chae had not submitted the returning report and claimed that if Chae had done her job, they wouldn't have had to come in. Chae defended herself, saying that she had finished writing the report and would send it right away. The girl continued to worry about the situation, but a guy intervened, calling out to Yoon. The girl scolded him for interrupting, but the guy expressed concern about Yoon sleeping outside, worried she might get sick. Chae admitted she was too lazy, and the guy insisted that she should sleep inside. The girl, annoyed, called the guy overprotective and said he should mind his own business. She then shifted the conversation to another topic, suggesting that there was now another candidate. Chae, who had been thinking about Yoon and Raon, responded that they would need to wait and see. But it seemed like Raon might have feelings for Yoon. The girl, shocked, commented on how Raon, Yoon's first love, had returned at such a time. Chae teased her, saying that she seemed to like discussing other people's love lives. The girl, still focused on the situation, remarked that it was a good thing for Yoon, because now she had more candidates and a better chance of succeeding. Chae, however, seemed troubled and mentioned that every time she brought up Ryan, Yoon appeared to be bothered, even though she claimed to be fine. Chae expressed uncertainty, wondering whether this situation would turn out to be good or bad. The girl, noticing Chae's change in demeanor, asked what was wrong, but Chae quickly dismissed it, saying nothing was wrong. The guy then asked if they weren't going to keep an eye on Yoon, to which Chae replied that Yoon was probably in bed with a hangover. Later, Jae-ha brought Yoon some dried pollock soup, asking if Yoon had drunk a lot with Chae-won. Yoon assured her that she hadn't, though she admitted to having gone for a second round of drinks with Mr. Chae. Jae-ha's husband, concerned, suggested that if Yoon wasn't feeling well, she should go home and rest. Yoon, however, insisted she was fine and that she had to deliver the food she had promised. Just as she said that, the doorbell rang, surprising them. Jae-ha asked if something was supposed to arrive that day, but Yoon had no idea. Jae-ha remarked on how quickly the delivery had arrived. Raon entered, mentioning it was his first time meeting Yoon's brother-in-law. Jae-ha's husband, recognizing Raon, commented that he had heard Raon had known Yoon since she was young. Raon then greeted Yoon, who was shocked to see him. She choked on her food in surprise, and Jae-ha and her husband quickly rushed to help her, offering water. Yoon, embarrassed, wished someone would save her, while Raon commented that she hadn't changed and was still clumsy. Yoon, recovering, snapped at him, asking why he had suddenly shown up after such a long time. She questioned why he was here when they were probably going to go to his place soon anyway. Raon explained that he couldn't attend Jae-ha's wedding, but he wanted to introduce himself to her brother-in-law before she visited his house. Yoon, frustrated, said that he should have come to the wedding back then, questioning why he had returned now after being absent for 4 years. Raon then revealed the reason for his return, stating that he missed her. He confessed, saying he had come back because he missed her, calling her by her name, Jae. Jae was stunned by what she had just heard from Raon. She didn't know what to say in response. As she was trying to process everything, her sister entered, curious about what they had been talking about. Raon had mentioned that he missed both Jae-ha and Jae, which was why he came back. Jae couldn't help but reflect on how breaking her heart had always been Raon's thing. Later that day, Jae returned home, feeling tired and weighed down. Her heart felt heavy, and she wanted to feel lighter, but Raon's words kept echoing in her mind. She found herself blushing as she thought about it, though she didn't want to. Her thoughts drifted back to her high school days with Raon, and she found herself tangled in feelings for her first love again. The next day, Jae returned home feeling exhausted, having had no rest over the weekend. She felt isolated, as there was no one to talk to about her emotions. She had told everyone that she was over Raon, but deep down she wasn't so sure anymore. Suddenly, her new crush appeared, walking up behind her. Jae recognized him and noticed he had seen her clearing leaves out of the way, something she did every day. She had assumed he was there to buy coffee, but instead he was on his way to work. When he saw her, he stopped to say hello, the first time she had seen him in the morning. Jae felt her face turn red, trying to hide her embarrassment. Her crush, noticing her reaction, offered her a cookie, one he had bought from a store. Jae knew that different stores sold different cookies, but she accepted the gesture with a smile, thanking him. As he was about to leave, Jae invited him to come by during lunch so she could treat him to a free coffee. Just then, Chae appeared from behind, and it was clear to her that Jae's crush was more than just interested in her. However, Jae wasn't surprised by Chae's sudden appearance this time. Chae looked directly at Jae's face, and Jae thought something was wrong, but Chae wasn't concerned with that. Instead, he asked when she would finally ask her crush for his number. Jae became shy, her face turning even redder at Chae's comment. Chae went inside the coffee house, but surprisingly, he didn't seem interested in getting coffee himself. Raon's mother always enjoyed looking through old pictures of Raon and Jae from their childhood. She never tired of reminiscing about those moments, as they represented the early years of Raon's life. She had a special fondness for Jae, whom she considered the cutest girl. Since their time at the hospital, Raon's mother had liked Jae a lot. She also thought Raon was the most handsome boy and tried her best to make sure he didn't feel left out. It had been so long since she had seen Jae, and she wanted to invite her over for lunch. At first, Raon didn't understand why she was so eager. Jae was always busy, especially since her sister was on leave, and Raon didn't want to impose. However, he knew Jae had an intern, and his mother was aware that Jae worked with her employee from morning until evening, also being the one to close the cafe. Raon was confused, though, as he had met someone else besides Jae at the cafe, and he couldn't figure out who this person was. Jae had mentioned her part-time employee when they were at Jaeha's house, but Raon's mother grew upset upon hearing this, wanting to go and meet Jae herself. However, she had a meeting to attend, and she worried that Jaeha's husband would feel uncomfortable. Raon's mother had always hoped that Jae would join their company, but Jae had chosen to work at the cafe, which was something she truly wanted. Jae had always been wise beyond her years, even as a child. Raon was planning to work at his father's company, which was why he had been sent abroad to study. His mother had been worried since he hadn't returned in 3 years, but Raon had other plans. Being the only child in the family, he had his own reasons for staying away. His mother wanted to know why he hadn't returned to Korea, but Raon kept this to himself. He had been doing well abroad, and one day he realized that he was doing so well, but felt incomplete without Jae. Raon's mother was thrilled when he came home and stayed with her. Raon and his friends organized a meeting, and Raon asked Jae to come. Despite Jae not wanting to go, she couldn't say no. Her life wasn't that simple, and she had to go. Che didn't understand why Jae was so hesitant and urged her to wait and see what the real misfortune would be. Jae didn't want to meet anyone who made her question whether she was special to someone, but Chai was determined to save her from this situation, which surprised Jae. Someone else had also been asked to attend the meeting, and Jae realized that it wasn't just Raon who was involved, but Yoon as well. Although the others seemed to think the meeting was because Raon had come back, this person knew that if Raon returned, Yoon would likely come too. Chai was determined to help, and he felt a shift in his emotions toward Jae. He had a plan to visit her, pretending that he couldn't open the cafe and needed to find her. Yoon found his idea silly, but Che explained that it wasn't a bad plan since her friend thought he was just a part-time employee. Yoon agreed, realizing Che might be right. Che then suggested that Yoon should go, and when Yoon questioned why he wanted her to go so badly, Che hesitated to explain further. Earlier, Che's boss had discussed their strategy. He explained that it was important to pursue both options, offering Jae a chance to choose between them, especially since the returning first love could be another option for her. Che expressed concern about being too ambitious and failing, but his boss reassured him. He explained that people often fail when they can't choose between two options, but their plan was different. They weren't pushing Jae toward a particular choice, just giving her more possibilities and letting her decide. The boss emphasized that if Jae got rejected by one person, it would be disastrous. Che was confused, especially since everyone seemed to think Jae would get rejected, a thought he had also shared at first. His boss told him not to get in the way but to observe and let things unfold, reminding him that it was important for Jae to choose. In the present, Chai continued, suggesting that someone who might have had a long-standing crush on Yoon could appear at the reunion. Yoon immediately denied this, but just as the conversation was wrapping up, Raon arrived and asked what Yoon was doing alone. Yoon replied that she had been reminiscing about the time she and Raon had dug up the garden when they were young. Raon was surprised that she remembered, recalling that they were about 5 years old at the time. He added that his mother had been looking for Yoon, but he had told her to let Yoon rest for a bit. Raon then asked if Yoon would attend the school reunion, reminding her that she had said she would think about it. Yoon hesitated, wondering if she needed to go with him. Raon reassured her that everyone would be there to see him, and she didn't need to worry about Youngwoo, as Raon hadn't contacted him since graduation and didn't want to make Yoon uncomfortable. Yoon finally agreed to attend, admitting it had been a while since she had seen everyone. Raon reminded her not to forget about the reunion and how she had promised to come. Yoon teased him, saying that it was his fault she hadn't grown taller, and her heart started racing uncontrollably. She then realized she was nervous about how she looked for the reunion. questioning if her outfit was right. Raon noticed her nervousness and joked that she had arrived early, but Yoon insisted she had just gotten there. Raon remarked that it felt different to be out together as adults, and Yoon reminded him that he hadn't returned for 4 years. Raon acknowledged that he should have visited more often and said he wished he could have seen her like this more often. Yoon, surprised, asked what he meant by looking like this. But Raon, realizing he had said too much, quickly changed the subject, pointing out that they had arrived at the meeting place. Yoon, still a bit flustered, asked why Raon wasn't going inside, and just then, Youngwoo appeared, remarking that neither of them had changed much. Yoon was stunned to see him again, calling out his name in surprise. Everyone was enjoying Raon's return to Korea, and drinks were flowing freely. Yoon, however, was already ready to leave. Fortunately, she and Raon were sitting apart. Raon had suggested she sit with the girls, but Yoon didn't want to make it obvious that she was thinking of leaving, especially since she had just arrived. As she sat, she noticed the talisman band on her wrist, which Chae had given her. It was meant to help encourage her courage, especially since she hadn't wanted to come at first. Yoon was surprised that Chae, who she thought was always straightforward, would do something like that. Yoon quietly asked herself why Chae was avoiding her eyes, questioning if he had lied. Chae, noticing her discomfort, told her that everything depended on her attitude and encouraged her to cheer up and have fun. Yoon wasn't sure whether Chae was bad at showing emotions or if he was just being kind to her. At that moment, Raon handed her something to eat and apologized, saying that he had asked her to come because he thought Youngwoo would be there, but now he wasn't. Raon felt bad for bringing her, but Yoon reassured him that it was fine and told him not to apologize. She urged him to go enjoy himself with the others, who were looking for him. Raon insisted that if anything happened, she should call him immediately. Yoon just told him to go, not wanting him to worry about her anymore. One of Jae's friends noticed the closeness between Yoon and Raon and commented on it. Yoon responded that it was because they had grown up together. The conversation shifted, and one of the friends asked Yoon what she had been up to lately, noting that she wasn't on social media. Jae, jumping in, said that she was running a cafe with her older sister, which impressed their friends. Yoon reflected to herself that, despite everything, it felt good to reconnect with old friends. It reminded her of high school days. The conversation turned to where Yoon was going, and she mentioned that she was just going outside for some fresh air. The friends suggested she take her jacket since it was probably cold outside, but Yoon brushed it off, saying she would be back soon. As she stepped outside, Yoon realized that it was a bit chilly. Raon noticed and reminded her that even though it was fall, she could still catch a cold if she wasn't dressed warmly enough. Yoon, not wanting to stay outside long, told him that she would go inside soon. Raon teased her, saying that she might as well stay outside for a while longer if she was dressed that lightly. Yoon, slightly cold, asked if he was cold too. Raon, noticing her small frame, joked that she might trip over her jacket since it was dragging on the ground. Yoon, slightly annoyed, joked back that if he hadn't pressed down her head so much when they were younger, she would have been as tall as her sister. Just then, one of their friends called out for Raon, asking where he had gone. Raon muttered that they wouldn't leave him alone and reminded Yoon that she shouldn't stay out too long either. Yoon agreed, saying she would go back inside soon, but since she had a coat, she planned to stay out just a little longer. She admitted to herself that she was having more fun than she had expected and realized that she shouldn't have worried so much. She also felt relieved that Youngwoo wasn't bothering her. However, just as she was feeling more at ease, Youngwoo appeared and sarcastically commented on how Yoon and Raon were still so close, even though they were adults. He called it gross, which made Yoon a little uncomfortable, while Raon simply shrugged it off. Yoon was confused and frustrated by Youngwoo's words, asking him what he meant by his comments. Youngwoo, however, made it clear that he thought Yoon was gross and accused her of thinking she was special. Yoon responded by saying that she didn't understand his animosity, and Youngwoo criticized her further, saying that she wasn't pretty, smart, or physically impressive. He continued to belittle her, suggesting that the only reason Raon kept her around was because she was his close friend, and then insulted her by calling her his younger sister. Youngwoo seemed to take pity on her and offered to date her, only to claim that he should have left her alone. He implied that Yoon should feel grateful for his attention. Yoon, upset by his words, pointed out that after she rejected his confession, Youngwoo had been acting arrogantly. She told him he needed to know his place, and that it wasn't right to lash out just because someone didn't return his feelings. Frustrated, Yoon admitted that she was tired of the situation and wanted to leave. Earlier, Chae had given her a bracelet, telling her that it was meant to bring peace and courage. Yoon tried to gather herself, recalling Chae's words as she faced Youngwoo. She asked him if he was still upset about her rejection from years ago. Youngwoo dismissed it, saying it was from a long time ago, but Yoon found it strange that he was still acting this way. She pointed out that if he was bothered by how close she and Rayon were, it was his own issue, and he shouldn't ruin the mood for everyone else. She told him that if he didn't have anything else to say, she was going back inside. Youngwoo, however, was enraged, and Yoon, not backing down, threatened to scream if he didn't back off. Youngwoo taunted her, telling her to ask Rayon for help, but Yoon quickly countered by asking why he kept bringing Rayon up. She accused him of taking his frustrations out on her because he had an inferiority complex about Rayon. At that moment, Chae appeared and kicked Youngwoo away, rescuing Yoon. People inside the venue heard the commotion and wondered what had happened outside. Yoon, realizing the potential consequences, feared that Youngwoo would file assault charges against Chae. She worried that Youngwoo would make trouble since he had a reputation as a grim reaper, and Chae shouldn't get involved in such situations. Raon and their friends came over, concerned about what had happened. Youngwoo, furious, cursed at Yoon and called her crazy. Yoon, still uneasy, asked Chae if he thought Youngwoo would follow them, but Chae dismissed her concerns, teasing her about being out of shape for feeling tired after the altercation. Yoon wasn't focused on that, though. She was more concerned about how Chae had shown up out of nowhere and kicked Youngwoo. While it had felt satisfying, Yoon wasn't sure what the consequences would be. Chae, however, explained that he was supposed to keep an eye on her, not only to watch her but also to prevent dangerous situations like this. He reminded her that she needed to stay alive for a certain reason. Yoon, still not fully understanding, asked if Chae believed she could die from something like this. Chae was serious, telling her that humans often kill over small matters, citing the news as proof. Yoon, growing anxious, wondered aloud if Chae was implying that Youngwoo was dangerous. Chae reassured her, explaining that his actions were just precautions. He didn't know if Youngwoo had truly intended harm, but he wanted to make sure Yoon was safe. Yoon, feeling a bit unnerved, expressed that when Chae spoke this way it scared her. Chae, noticing her reaction, asked what was really scaring her, but Yoon quickly clarified that she was feeling relieved instead. She admitted that Chae really had come to her rescue. Chae then told her to get up and sit somewhere else while he went to buy something. Yoon, still feeling the effects of the encounter, asked for an iced Americano. As she stood there, she realized she was still wearing Chae's coat and wondered if he was worried about her. She decided to call him, but before she could, a voice interrupted her. A guy approached, saying he had been right all along. Yoon turned to face him, unsure of who it was. Yoon, surprised to see Woobin, asked if it was a dream. Woobin greeted her and commented on the beautiful night, asking what she was doing there. Yoon explained that she was just getting some fresh air to sober up, but Woobin, concerned, pointed out that it was dangerous to be sitting alone like that. Yoon reassured him that her friend had gone to buy something quickly, so she wasn't alone. She appreciated Woobin's concern, thinking to herself that he was being nice because he was worried about her. Woobin, still worried, asked if it would be okay for him to stay with her until her friend came back, as he thought she seemed a little drunk. Yoon hesitated but asked if it was okay, wondering if she smelled like alcohol, which might be why he thought she was drunk. Woobin assured her it was fine, explaining that he had just been on his way back from the convenience store and his house was nearby. Yoon, realizing Woobin lived in the neighborhood, commented that the location wasn't too far from the cafe. She jokingly asked if he had bought anything frozen or refrigerated. Woobin responded that he hadn't bought anything frozen, but offered Yoon something to drink for her hangover, telling her to put out her hands. He said it would help, and even though Yoon hesitated, remembering that Woobin had given her a cookie before, he insisted it wasn't expensive and that she should drink it. Yoon, in return, promised that she'd give him free coffee at the cafe on Monday. Woobin then remarked that the drink worked better than she might think. Yoon, recalling how Woobin had once brought a cookie to the cafe, commented that he seemed to like sweets. But Woobin revealed that, despite his fondness for sweets, he always ordered just an iced Americano with an extra shot at their cafe. He explained that he loved coffee just as much as he loved sweets and needed the caffeine after lunch to combat the lingering sweetness. Yoon agreed, admitting it was hard to stay awake without the right balance. Woobin mentioned that he was addicted to her coffee and couldn't even go to other coffee shops anymore. Yoon, feeling happy, responded that she was glad to hear that, appreciating her regular customers. She felt elated when she was with Woobin. Woobin then noted that he had another reason for being there, but added that Yoon's friend was taking a while. Yoon agreed, saying she should call him, though she secretly wanted to stay in Woobin's company. She felt like she was wasting his time, though, and wanted to make sure he wasn't waiting on her. Meanwhile, Che, realizing Woobin was coming over, decided to keep a distance and watch from elsewhere. Yoon, distracted by a phone notification, wondered aloud why there were so many. She remembered that she had left in a rush earlier and made a mess of things. Feeling bad, she told Woobin that she was going to make a quick phone call and asked him to go ahead first. Woobin said he would wait until she finished. Yoon apologized for not calling sooner and explained that she should have reached out earlier. Raon, on the other end of the line, reassured her, telling her it was okay and that he was just glad she had called. He asked where she was, noting that she hadn't taken her wallet, so he guessed she wasn't home yet. Yoon replied that she was still near the restaurant and asked if the reunion was still going on. Raon, however, told her that he wasn't at the reunion but was currently at the police station. Meanwhile, Woobin, who had been quietly listening, wondered aloud if Yoon was okay. He noted that she had seemed very flustered earlier and had been planning to ask for her number that day. Just then, Yoon's phone rang, and it was Yoonsu calling Woobin. Raon informed Yoon that he was at the police station, but he would be done soon. He added that Youngwoo was there as well and advised her not to come, suggesting they meet in front of her house. He also mentioned that her wallet was in the front pocket of her coat. Yoon, concerned, called out his name in surprise. Raon reassured her, telling her not to rush and asking if she had run there. Yoon, noticing his disheveled appearance, asked why his face looked like that. Raon confessed that he had gotten into a fight with Youngwoo, which was why he was at the police station. Yoon, shocked, raised her voice in disbelief. Raon urged her to lower her voice, asking her to calm down. Yoon was in disbelief, thinking that Raon must have been at the police station because Youngwoo had gone crazy. She felt terrible, blaming herself for causing the fight and regretting that she had run away earlier. Raon reassured her that it wasn't her fault, explaining that he had wanted to beat up Youngwoo for a long time. Yoon still felt guilty, believing she was partially responsible for provoking Youngwoo. Raon, however, firmly stated that it wasn't her fault, placing all the blame on himself and telling her not to feel guilty. He asked her to hurry up and give him the first aid kit. Yoon, now focused, agreed to get it. Raon explained that Yoon only needed to apply some ointment and put a bandage on the injury, but Yoon insisted that she needed to disinfect it properly to avoid infection. She told him to stay still while she cleaned the wound, noticing that Raon was flinching. Raon, a bit uncomfortable, thought to himself that she was too close. Yoon then applied the ointment, but Raon insisted on doing it himself, offering that she should just hold up the mirror for him. Yoon, still concerned, suggested that Raon see a doctor just in case. Raon refused, claiming that if he went to a doctor for something like this, they would laugh at him. Yoon, still worried, pointed out that Auntie would be upset if she saw him in this condition and asked if she should call her. Raon shrugged it off, saying his mom would probably praise him for beating Youngwoo up. He joked that Youngwoo's face alone would take 5 weeks to recover. Yoon, shaking her head, called him ridiculous. Raon reassured her that the main cuts were minor, urging her not to feel guilty, as she had done nothing wrong. Yoon, still feeling uneasy, suggested that he might be acting this way because she was like a younger sister to him. Raon, ready to leave, told her he should go now. Yoon, still feeling concerned, urged him to have a cup of coffee before leaving. Raon, however, explained that his mom would be angry if she found out he stayed at her house too late. He then brought up something Youngwoo had said. Apparently some men had punched him first and taken Yoon away. He asked if it was someone she knew. Yoon hesitated, remembering the incident. She explained that the man who had helped her was someone she knew, a part-timer from the cafe. Raon, relieved that he had come at the right time, suggested he should go to the cafe to thank him. Yoon, however, informed him that it had been the man's last day at the cafe, and he no longer worked there. Raon expressed his disappointment, but then said he needed to go. He told Yoon to rest up and take care of herself. Yoon, grateful for his concern, asked him to get home safely and to text her once he arrived. After hanging up, she reflected on the long day. There had been bad moments, happy moments, and moments that had made her heart race. It had been a hectic day, and now she just wanted to wash up and rest. The call began with someone berating Youngwoo, accusing him of being crazy and foolish for getting involved with Jae-yi. The caller reminded him that provoking her would inevitably anger Raon. Youngwoo dismissed the scolding, telling the person to shut up, but admitted to himself that he should have let Raon beat him up so he could have sued him afterward. The caller pointed out that Youngwoo had retaliated the moment Raon punched him and suggested that he avoid future gatherings, as the others felt uncomfortable with his presence. The caller offered to buy him a drink another time before ending the call. Fuming, Youngwoo blamed everything on Jae-yi, calling her names and vowing to find out where she worked. Before he could say more, Che appeared, addressing him by name. Surprised, Youngwoo demanded to know who Che was. Che cryptically replied, questioning his identity as well, and then asked Youngwoo if he wanted to play. Confused and frightened, Youngwoo screamed. Meanwhile, Yoon woke up complaining about a stomachache, wondering if it was due to mixing different types of alcohol the night before. She heard the doorbell and wondered who would visit so early on a Sunday morning. Che announced himself as the visitor, referring to himself as the Grim Reaper. Yoon, surprised, asked why he rang the doorbell instead of just coming in as usual. Che reminded her that she had asked him not to show up unannounced anymore. Yoon was touched by his consideration. Che noticed her reaction and told her to stop looking at him as if he were a younger brother who had finally grown up. Yoon denied thinking that and offered him ramen, which he declined. She privately thought that, for some reason, Chai seemed younger than her. Curious, Yoon asked Che about his age, wondering if Grim Reapers typically worked for centuries. Chai admitted that was true for higher-ranking Reapers but trailed off before finishing his thought, distracted by the boiling water. Yoon focused on preparing the ramen, commenting on how it was the best remedy after drinking. Che noted how much she loved to drink, and Yoon asked again if he wanted to eat. Che refused, questioning why she was so insistent. Yoon explained that he looked tired, and she assumed he hadn't eaten. Che revealed he had been working until then, prompting Yoon to suggest he should have gone straight to rest. Che admitted he wanted to check if she had made it home safely, since he hadn't been able to take her home the previous night. Observing her now, he concluded that she seemed fine. Yoon thanked him and updated him about Raon's fight with Youngwoo. Che deduced that was why Raon's face was bruised. Yoon expressed guilt, feeling partially responsible, though she believed Youngwoo was harmless and wouldn't have done much to her. Che disagreed, implying Youngwoo wasn't as harmless as she thought. He then suggested Raon might have acted out of strong emotions because she was involved. Yoon dismissed the idea, questioning why Raon would do such a thing and jokingly asserting that she was the older one since she was born first. Che thought to himself that while Woobin's interest in her was obvious, Yoon seemed oblivious. He guessed she was so focused on her emotions that she didn't notice what was happening around her, especially since she had mentioned only having long-term crushes before. Yoon noticed Che avoiding her gaze and asked why. Che replied cryptically, saying they had a long way to go. When Yoon pressed him to explain, he told her to listen carefully, but their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Jae-ha arrived, explaining that his in-laws had sent him a lot of fruit, so he came to share some with her. He noticed Che and asked who he was. Yoon explained to Jae-ha that Che was there because a large spider had appeared in her bathroom. She said she had posted on a website for odd jobs looking for help to catch the spider, and Che had responded. Jae-ha expressed mild surprise, and Yoon added that Che had successfully caught the spider, so she offered him a drink before he left. Jae-ha then suggested Chai should have some of the apples and pears he had brought before leaving. Yoon quickly interjected, saying that Chai needed to leave soon because he had another bug-catching job to attend to. Chai confirmed her story, and Yoon turned to Jae-ha, offering him something to eat instead. Jae-ha declined, explaining that his husband was waiting for him downstairs and that he had only stopped by briefly to drop off the fruit. Before leaving, he thanked Chae for helping his sister, though as he walked out, Chae commented that Yoon was terrible at lying. Yoon defended herself, saying she had successfully covered for him. Outside, Dangwoo remarked to Jae-ha that he had left Yoon's place quickly and could have spent more time with her. Jae-ha speculated that Yoon might have a boyfriend, inadvertently leaving behind a big misunderstanding. Back inside, Yoon enjoyed the fruit, remarking that it was delicious and expressing regret that Jae-ha hadn't stayed to have some. Shortly after, Round texted her to ask how she was feeling. Yoon reassured him that she was fine and asked about his condition. Round replied that he was okay, but mentioned that his face was swollen and his cheeks resembled balloons. Yoon, unsurprised, teased him about it. When Yoon called him, she scolded him for not seeing a doctor. Round explained that it was Sunday and that he didn't see the point of visiting a doctor for such a minor injury. Yoon voiced concern that his mother, Anna, would be upset about his condition, but Round revealed that she was actually proud of him. Yoon expressed her dislike of eating ramen for hangovers, but Round countered, saying it was the best remedy after drinking. They talked on the phone until Yoon felt her cheeks grow warm. Reflecting on their conversation, she realized that the awkwardness between them from the previous week had eased. Though she still harbored feelings for him as her first love, she accepted that they were now simply friends. However, her thoughts shifted to Woobin, whose presence left her feeling overwhelmed. While talking to Round had been enjoyable, Yoon found herself wishing she could have a similar conversation with Woobin. She regretted how their parting had felt rushed and lamented not having his number to check if he made it home safely. Determined to act, she resolved to give Woobin her number the next day when he came to the cafe, even if he rejected her. Unexpectedly, Woobin approached her first, admitting he had been worried about her after their last meeting but hadn't been able to contact her. He nervously offered his number, saying she didn't have to accept it if it made her uncomfortable. Surprised, Yoon confessed that she had been planning to give him her number as well. Woobin was overjoyed, and Yoon felt the same. Excited, she thought to herself, "Mr. Chae, I finally did it." Elsewhere, Round remarked that he was still feeling jet-lagged. A voice expressed surprise, and Round remembered belatedly that Jae-ha was coming over that day. During their conversation, Jae-ha speculated aloud about something, and Round's mother exclaimed, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that my Yoon has a boyfriend." Round thought to himself about the mention of Yoon having a boyfriend. At first he had been a bit shocked, but upon reflection, he found it strange for Yoon not to have a boyfriend given the circumstances. He guessed that the man he had seen with her a couple of times must be the one. Though he admitted to feeling upset, he blamed himself for being away from her side for 4 years. Still, he consoled himself with the thought that as long as he remained by her side in the end, he would be fine waiting. Meanwhile, Yoon was ecstatic. She repeatedly told herself she wasn't dreaming. Chae noticed her excitement and asked what she was doing with her phone and why she was laughing. Yoon proudly revealed that she had exchanged numbers with Woobin. Chae, curious, asked if that meant they were now dating. Yoon quickly clarified that they weren't yet, explaining that exchanging numbers was just the first step. She hoped they would get to know each other, meet a few times, and then eventually start dating. Chae remarked that she still had a long way to go. Despite this, Yoon felt overjoyed, admitting it all felt like a dream. She reminded Chae how she used to be too nervous to even speak to Woobin, and declared that she was celebrating. She offered to treat Chae to whatever he wanted, and Chae took her up on it, asking for a chocolate frappuccino. Watching her enthusiasm, Chae noted that Yoon had made progress, and thought to himself that if she kept it up and began dating Woobin, she would start a new chapter in her life, and perhaps he would as well. Yoon brought Chae his drink, mentioning that she had added extra whipped cream. While everything seemed positive, she couldn't shake a strange, undefined feeling lingering inside her. At the same time, Woobin was thinking about Yoon. He told himself that once they got to know each other better, he should ask her out on a date. He wondered what kind of food she liked, realizing he only knew her name. The thought made his heart race unexpectedly. As he worked, Woobin's coworker approached, asking to take a quick break. Woo-bin agreed and asked if something was wrong. The co-worker hesitated before relaying a message from Yeon-soo, asking Woo-bin to pick up her calls. Woo-bin was taken aback, but listened as his co-worker explained that Yeon-soo had been crying and begging for help, which had made it hard to refuse. Apologetically, the co-worker added that since Woo-bin and Yeon-soo had been a couple in college, they had felt bad for her. Woo-bin firmly replied that it wasn't as if he had disappeared without a word. He reminded the co-worker that he and Yeon-soo had been adults when they broke up, and their decision to part ways had been mutual. Yeon-soo had even initiated the breakup. The co-worker apologized, promising to refuse any future requests from Yeon-soo. They added that they didn't mean to trouble Woo-bin and offered to buy him a drink to make up for it. Woo-bin reassured them it was fine and thanked them for understanding. The co-worker excused themselves to rest before returning to work. Left alone, Woo-bin sighed and thought about Yeon-soo, wondering what she was trying to accomplish by reaching out to him after all this time. The Grim Reaper was thrilled, exclaiming that the situation was unfolding like a scene from a drama. He remarked how Chae had appeared when the returnee was in trouble, helped her, and even went on a late-night date with her. Their exchange of numbers only solidified his optimism. At this rate, he mused, she'll succeed without much trouble. My instincts tell me this will be a total success. Chae, skeptical, asked the Grim Reaper how someone born hundreds of years ago could know so much about love. The Grim Reaper brushed off the comment, remarking on Chae's sharp tongue, despite only living 22 years. He then instructed Chae to keep an eye on the returnee and ensure she didn't die in an accident. Chae replied that he was heading out to retrieve a soul and bid farewell. Before he left, the Grim Reaper handed Chae some food and cautioned him to be careful. Watching him leave, the Grim Reaper reminisced about raising Chae from a young age, lamenting, "That rude brat. I raised him since he was this small and now he's an ungrateful punk." The Grim Reaper's companion chimed in, noting that it was indeed true he was hundreds of years old. Ignoring the comment, the Grim Reaper expressed relief that everything seemed to be progressing smoothly and that they had chosen the right returnee at the right time. Then, realizing he was talking to someone who wouldn't respond, he muttered, "Why did I bother asking you?" Meanwhile, Dan silently pondered the report, wondering if it wasn't Yoon who had dramatically saved the returnee. Elsewhere, Jae's friend Chaewon teased her, saying she would burn a hole through her phone with how intently she was staring at it. Chaewon expressed frustration that Jae was ignoring her while she had kept her schedule free to meet. Apologizing, Jae explained her distraction. Chaewon speculated that since Woo-bin was an office worker, he might be working late. Then jokingly she added, "Or maybe he's just playing around with you." Jae, irritated, told her not to jinx it. Chaewon laughed, assuring her it was just a joke and reminding her that Woo-bin seemed like an honest person. She urged Jae not to worry and asked what her first text to him had been. Jae admitted she had only sent him a simple hello, and Chaewon playfully scolded her for being so anxious over such a small message. Meanwhile, Woo-bin was feeling torn between his previous girlfriend, Yeon-soo, and Jae. At the cafe, Jae fretted over his silence, noting that he hadn't texted her back or come in during lunch. She began to wonder if Chaewon's joke was true. Even if it wasn't, she thought, who would go so far as to exchange numbers and then ghost her? Just as she was spiraling into doubt, the door opened. Woo-bin greeted her, and Jae, surprised, asked if he had already had lunch or why he was there. Woo-bin explained that he had been working outside the office that morning and had to head straight back after lunch but was able to stop by now. Jae offered to make his usual drink, which he accepted. Woo-bin apologized for not texting her back, explaining that urgent work had come up the previous night, and by the time he finished, it was very late. He added that his morning had been busy with preparations for work outside the office. Jae assured him it was fine and said she had only sent the text to say hello. Woo-bin, feeling guilty, promised to respond to her texts promptly in the future. She handed him his iced Americano, and he regretfully mentioned that he couldn't stay long as he had snuck out during work hours. Jae encouraged him to return to work, and Woo-bin reassured her that he would text her for real next time before leaving. She wished him a productive day as he exited the cafe. As Woo-bin left, Round accidentally bumped into him. Woobin stepped aside, allowing Round to go first. After a brief exchange of apologies, Jie looked up and recognized Round, calling his name. Jie remarked that Round should have informed her about his visit, expressing surprise and feeling caught off guard. Round admitted that he had wanted to surprise her. Jie, still upset, told him that he was no longer allowed to surprise her. Round asked if she was still angry that he hadn't let her know when he returned to Korea. Jie mentioned it wasn't just that, but also how he hadn't informed her when he went to study abroad. She urged him to hurry up and eat, adding that the meal was on her. Curious, she asked why he had come so suddenly. Round, feigning hurt, questioned whether she was upset about his visit. Jie clarified it wasn't the case. He then explained that he had come simply out of curiosity. The last time he visited, the cafe had been closed, and since he had always wanted to see the place, he took the opportunity. He noted how she had always dreamed of becoming a cafe owner. Jie was surprised that he remembered, clarifying that her sister was technically the owner. Round dismissed the distinction, remarking that it was the same thing. As they conversed, he observed the emptiness of the cafe and asked if business was going well. Jie reassured him that since they were surrounded by office buildings, they only got busy during specific times. Che, elsewhere, realized it wasn't a good time to approach Jie and decided to finish his own task first. Round noticed someone leaving and asked if Jie's boyfriend had just walked away without coming in. Startled, Jie quickly denied having a boyfriend. Round brought up how Jie-ha had mentioned a man and seemed happy about Jie having a boyfriend. Jie dismissed the notion, explaining that the man Jie-ha saw had come over to deal with a bug. She added that if she did have a boyfriend, her sister would already know. While speaking, Jie suddenly noticed Round's expression and asked if he was unwell. Round brushed it off, saying he just felt sleepy all of a sudden but was fine now. She asked if he was still jet-lagged. Internally, Round felt guilty, realizing he was happy to hear Jie didn't have a boyfriend. Curious, Jie asked who Round had seen outside. He mentioned it was likely the former part-time employee. Jie guessed it might have been Mr. Che, noting that he often dropped by when he was in the area. She speculated that he might have left after seeing her with Round. Round, however, silently noted that Jie's expression suggested she wasn't being entirely truthful. He suspected she might be interested in someone and resolved not to feel anxious, promising to stay by her side from now on. Round then asked if it was really okay for her to close the cafe early. Jie reassured him that she had her sister's permission and that she wanted to treat him to a nice meal since he had returned. Round remarked that it seemed a little late, but before they could continue, Jie noticed someone in the distance. She thought it might be Mr. Che again and noted that the atmosphere suddenly felt strange. Spotting a figure in a black hat and jacket, which reminded her of a Grim Reaper, she became uneasy and wanted to leave quickly. As Jie was about to leave, Round abruptly shouted for her to stop. Nearby, people gasped and shouted in alarm, reacting to an unseen danger. Meanwhile, the Grim Reaper observed the situation, remarking that the returnee's life held significance and that this was part of her path as the heir of Great Yomra. Round grabbed Jie just in time, saving her from harm, but she was left in shock, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The driver, seemingly drunk, had caused the accident. A bystander lost her life and others rushed to help, attempting to rescue more people trapped in the car. The Grim Reaper witnessed everything but did not react, instead walking away indifferently. Jie remained frozen, unable to speak, as the lifeless woman lay only a few feet away from her. Rowan called out to her, but she seemed unresponsive and eventually fainted. Rowan, having informed Jie-ha of Jie's condition, ensured she received medical attention, including an IV drip. He prepared to take her to her sister's house once she stabilized. When Jie regained consciousness, she appeared disoriented and unaware of her surroundings, much to Raon's relief. Explaining they were at the hospital, he reassured her that he had brought her there after she fainted due to the accident. Feeling guilty for causing Raon so much trouble, she apologized, though Raon insisted it was nothing to worry about. Noticing Raon's hands were reddened and scraped from when they fell, Jie blamed herself once again. She admitted she no longer felt dizzy or nauseous, though the incident had triggered a memory she had suppressed. Despite her erased memories, the similar circumstances of the accident had brought them back. Concerned, Raun asked if she had experienced a similar accident in the past. Though hesitant to reveal the truth, Jae admitted she had been hit by a car before. She explained that she hadn't told Jaeha because she didn't want to worry anyone, though the incident had left her deeply traumatized. Realizing the depth of her trauma, Raun expressed regret for not being there for her. His words moved Jae to tears as she felt overwhelmed by her emotions and fear. Raun comforted her, promising to stay by her side, and hugged her. Meanwhile, Che, who had been nearby, left quietly without saying anything. Later that night, Che visited Jae again. She couldn't understand why he was acting so much like a Grim Reaper, though she didn't mind his presence, even if he had entered without knocking. Since it was her sister's room, she wasn't surprised he had found her. Jae, however, wasn't entirely okay, and had been scolded extensively by her sister earlier. Despite her sister's insistence, Jae was reluctant to close the cafe and see a doctor again. Che, having witnessed the accident, recalled the moment vividly. Jae had encountered another Grim Reaper, dressed in traditional black attire with a black hat, which contrasted with Che's more casual style. She remembered that Che had worn the same outfit when they first met. Reflecting on her 100-day mark and the possibility of failure, she hoped that if she were to die, Che would be the one to come for her, as his presence would make her feel less afraid. Eventually, Jae drifted off to sleep, though Che appeared melancholic about something, silently observing her as she rested. Che reflected on his existence, recalling that death had always been his companion because he embodied death itself. A Grim Reaper remarked on Che's role, identifying him as the next candidate for the Great Yomra, though currently just a child. Another Grim Reaper expressed admiration for Che's unique perspective, while Che dismissed the need for formality, asserting that he would speak freely and looked forward to working with the twins. One of the Grim Reapers found his demeanor arrogant, while Che calmly stated that his sole purpose was to survive and fulfill his reason for being born. The conversation shifted as a Grim Reaper asked Che whether the punishment assigned to the latest batch of the dead was appropriate. Che, unable to grasp human emotions, affirmed that all 10 individuals had committed murder, a serious crime. The Grim Reaper agreed, but questioned whether their crimes should be judged solely based on their actions without considering their relationships with others. Presenting various cases, the Grim Reaper suggested Che review them for deeper understanding. However, Che insisted that murderers, regardless of their circumstances, were criminals. Frustrated, the Grim Reaper argued that Che's bookish understanding was insufficient and that he lacked experience with humans due to being born and raised in the underworld. They decided to consult the Great Yomra about this. Che later realized that this led to Yoon selecting Jae. The Grim Reaper believed Jae was a good choice because she had strong reasons to live again, making her an ideal case for Che's test. Although skeptical, Che reluctantly agreed, noting it seemed unfair to turn back time for her. The Grim Reaper emphasized that the Great Yomra had approved the decision and that Jae's case was vital for the fate of the underworld. Che, tasked with guiding her, memorized the instructions and prepared to do his best, though he viewed the situation as challenging for Jae. He understood their meeting was meant to give him more experience with humans. Meanwhile, Jae expressed her exhaustion, noting the early doctor's visit. Raun, who accompanied her, reassured her, saying it wasn't a problem. She thanked him for the drink and apologized for troubling him, but Raun insisted he did it willingly and she needn't feel bad. Jae, however, found his words disconcerting as they gave her the wrong impression, especially while she was still shaken from the previous day's events. Raun pointed out that her customers might be surprised to find the cafe suddenly closed. Jae explained that Damwoo had promised to put up a notice about the closure, though she felt guilty about disappointing her regulars. She briefly considered texting Woobin to inform him, but hesitated, unsure if it was appropriate. Raun lightened the mood by suggesting they spend the day together and finally have a meal since they missed the chance the day before. A notice posted at the cafe read, "Temporary closure due to personal circumstances. The cafe will be closed today. We apologize for the inconvenience." Woobin, upon seeing it, wondered if Jae was unwell. Jae found herself enjoying the moment, expressing how fun it was. Rowan remarked that he couldn't have imagined the sequel being released 10 years later. Jae agreed, noting that the cast members still looked the same and that the main character remained as cool as ever. Ran reminded her of how she was captivated by the main character when she watched the first movie, and Jae commented on how some people aged gracefully. Ran admitted he was too engrossed in the movie to drink anything and asked if she wanted a drink as well. Jae requested a sip from his drink, though she silently chastised herself, recalling she had planned to treat him the day before, but failed to. She also felt guilty because Round had woken up early for her that morning. Round brought up the release of Tapman 2, asking if she had seen it yet. Jae realized she had forgotten about it due to her busy schedule and asked if it was already out. Round confirmed it had been released the previous week and noted it was worth watching. Jae reflected on how she had missed the opportunity to watch it in a theater before and resolved to see it this time on the big screen. Round suggested they go together and enjoy some popcorn, adding that it had been a while since they did that. They decided on a sweet and salty mix for their snack. As they entered the theater, Round remarked it had been a long time since he visited one, while Jae admitted everything was happening quickly. She told herself they were just hanging out as friends, though she couldn't help feeling a bit self-conscious. When she suddenly felt thirsty, Round handed her his drink, telling her to go ahead. As they turned their phones back on, Jae noticed a message from Woobin. He had reached out first, worried about her. She quickly texted back, assuring him she was okay and had only gone to the doctor for a checkup. Woobin replied, asking if she was unwell, but Jae reassured him she was fine. Meanwhile, Rayon observed her reaction and thought to himself how difficult it was to hide all his feelings. Though he had promised himself he would wait, seeing her smile because of someone else still hurt. He recalled a moment when she had insisted on going home alone. In the present, Jae noticed Rowan seemed off and asked if he was tired. Rowan brushed it off, suggesting they explore the mall and mentioning he needed to buy some clothes. Jae teased him about planning to spend the entire day with her, which he didn't deny. Elsewhere, Che approached a Grim Reaper, asking for help with the returnee and offering a bribe. The Grim Reaper was surprised, pointing out that Che had previously declined his assistance. Che admitted he wasn't asking for much now. The Grim Reaper noted that his ability to help was limited since this was Che's test, questioning whether Che's interest had grown. Che maintained it was still a ridiculous task, to which the Grim Reaper remarked how people never changed. Despite his earlier statements, Che confessed quietly, "I don't want her to die." Jae's co-worker had noticed something unusual about her manager. She asked if it was that obvious, to which Jae responded with a question, clearly unsure. Her co-worker was surprised by Jae's reaction and pointed out that despite her manager not being at the office that day, Jae seemed unusually happy. The co-worker wondered aloud if something had happened between them. Jae explained that they were supposed to have dinner together later that evening and shared that, after a text from her manager the previous day, he had continued messaging her. She mentioned that while her co-worker was just texting, she was still having fun with the interaction. Jae then showed the conversation. Her manager had messaged her, expressing his relief that she was fine, but still wanting her to get checked out. He then suggested treating her to a meal the next day to ensure they both took care of themselves. Jae joked about whether this was a historical moment. The co-worker, now more curious, asked if her manager would be meeting her later that evening. Jae explained that he had mentioned he would be working outside the office all day and would not be at the cafe. The co-worker teased her about how much they seemed to be sharing their schedules now, to which Jae responded, saying it was time for her to go home. Her co-worker replied, claiming to be fine with working overtime. Jae, dismissing the teasing, remarked that she would enjoy her evening and said she was unsure if she would be able to eat properly. Just then, a voice interrupted, and a figure appeared. The voice introduced itself as a Grim Reaper and asked if Jae was Yoon Jae. Shocked, Jae demanded to know who the figure was and how long they had been standing there. She also joked that she felt like she was seeing a ghost. The figure then revealed itself to be a Grim Reaper and introduced themselves as Hyun Arang. Jae apologized for being frightened, not realizing Arang was also a Reaper. Irang reassured her, explaining that everyone gets scared, and asked if Jai had been frequently startled by another Grim Reaper, Mr. Che. Jai shared that Che had started using the door after she had gotten frightened a couple of times. Irang, slightly amused, commented that Chai seemed considerate. Then, in a more serious tone, Irang remarked that Che had even asked for their help. Jai, still unsure, asked if Irang was implying something about Che. Irang didn't respond directly, but instead asked Jai if she had seen another Grim Reaper at the scene of an accident a few days prior. Jai confirmed that she had, though it still left her a bit shaken. Irang sympathized, understanding how frightening such an experience could be. Jai explained that she was fine now, but still wondered if it was connected to the situation. Irang explained that even if they erased her memory, some fragments of the experience might remain, lingering and causing lingering fear. They reassured Jai that the memory wouldn't resurface unless she encountered a similar situation. Still, Irang would seal those fragments just in case. Jai thanked Irang for their help, then asked if they had come just to explain that. Irang responded, dismissing the idea, and explained that from now on, they would also be helping her with her love life. Irang offered to listen to any concerns Jai might feel uncomfortable sharing with Chai or others. Jai was surprised, asking if 2 Grim Reapers would really help her with her love life. Irang, seemingly amused, commented on the cafe's cake being delicious and mentioned looking forward to working with Jai. After some back and forth about the quality of the cake, Irang teased that Jai's colleague had even given them food. They joked about returning to the cafe for free treats. Che, watching the exchange, commented on the potential risks of Irang's comments, warning that they couldn't risk bankrupting the cafe. Irang reassured him that everything would be fine, then noticed that Che seemed unusually focused on someone. Che admitted that he was keeping an eye on Kim Woobin, Jai's manager. Irang asked if something was wrong, and Che answered cautiously that he was just looking out for Jai in case any problems arose. He added that if there was an issue, Jai could be in danger. Jai reflected on her lack of dating experience. Her dating history was practically non-existent until her late teens, when she developed a crush on someone named Rayon. She had been told that everyone dates in college, which led her to date an upperclassman in the same club. However, even that relationship didn't turn out as expected. One day, a classmate asked why Jai was dating the guy if she didn't even like him, wondering if it was out of pity. Jai was taken aback by the question and asked what they meant. The classmate, realizing they might have been too blunt, apologized. Jai explained that the guy had confessed his feelings for her first, and she didn't think it was a bad idea to give it a try. However, her friend then pointed out that Jai seemed to sigh every time she had to meet him, implying that Jai might have been dating him out of pity. Jai was left speechless, but the comment made her realize something about herself. Fortunately, the upperclassman soon had to leave for his mandatory military service, and Jai used that as an excuse to break up with him. She wished him the best, and reflected that she needed to like someone first to truly enjoy a relationship. That realization marked the start of her understanding of what she wanted from love. Now, for the first time in her life, Jai was going on a date with someone she genuinely liked. As she sat down with him, Woobin apologized for being late, asking if she had been waiting long. Jai reassured him, saying she had just arrived. Woobin, relieved, suggested they hurry and get something to eat because she must be hungry. The two were on their first date, and Jai felt happy and excited. As they ate, Woobin seemed pleased that Jai liked the place he had chosen. He admitted that he had been torn over where to go, but was glad she enjoyed it. Woobin explained that he often came to this restaurant because he liked it, and now he was happy to be there with her. He added that for their first date, he thought Western food would be a safe choice. Jai replied that she loved all kinds of food, including Western food. Woobin smiled and suggested they continue to eat good food together from now on, to which Jai happily agreed. She thought to herself that this wasn't a dream. She imagined running outside and telling everyone she knew. If they kept meeting like this, maybe they'd start seeing each other more seriously and meet every weekend. Then, Jai chuckled, thinking about how she didn't need to bother Che with her thoughts. Just then, Woobin got up to use the restroom, leaving his phone behind. Jia noticed the phone was vibrating intensely from an incoming call. She thought it must have been important because the call kept ringing without ending. As the phone almost slipped off the table, she caught it just in time. She checked the caller ID and saw it was someone named Yeonsu. Meanwhile, on the other end, Yeonsu was talking to someone, lamenting that Woobin hadn't answered his calls again. Despite that, Yeonsu believed Woobin hadn't blocked him, which meant he might still be hesitating. Another lady at the table then called Yeonsu to join them, but Yeonsu explained that they had already been drinking too much and had stepped out to sober up. Yeonsu said they wouldn't be able to keep up with their pace and was going to pass out if they tried. The lady insisted she could drink more, but Yeonsu pointed out something strange on the lady's face. The lady quickly dismissed it and instead commented that the more she looked at Yeonsu, the more she was reminded of her best friend. At first, she had even thought Yeonsu was wearing a wig when she stepped into the office. Yeonsu was surprised and intrigued, saying that now she really wanted to meet the woman's best friend. Jae was walking home, her mind occupied with thoughts. She muttered to herself that the situation had stopped, and she should just pretend she hadn't seen anything. She regretted not simply putting the phone back without looking at the screen. Just then, Woobin spoke up, asking if they should head out since the staff had mentioned they'd bring their coats. Jae responded by pointing out that his phone had been vibrating for a while, wondering aloud who could be calling him at this hour. Woobin, curious, suggested it might be the office, and Jae joked that it could be a really, really important call. As Woobin checked his phone, Jae opened a soda can to drink. She pondered, feeling troubled about who could be calling him. Then her phone rang. Chaewon's name appeared on the screen. Jae answered, and Chaewon immediately began speaking excitedly, telling her about a co-worker who had returned from an overseas branch. Chaewon mentioned that the co-worker looked just like Jae, and at first, she had even thought it was her. Jae, surprised, asked if they really looked that similar, and Chaewon responded that not only did they look alike, but they also gave off the same vibes. However, Chaewon added that the woman looked more like Jae's older sister than Jae's actual sister. Jae, amused, replied that she and her sister didn't look alike at all. Chaewon then teased that if she ever had to work outside the office with this co-worker, she would bring her to Jae's cafe. Jae, curious, asked Chaewon if she was home yet, as she had mentioned having dinner with her co-workers. Chaewon confirmed she was on her way home, and then asked Jae how her date had gone, noticing Jae had been oddly quiet about it. Jae answered that it had gone well, but she was on her way home now and had planned to call Chaewon once she got there. Chaewon suggested they talk after Jae had freshened up, and Jae agreed, saying she would call in an hour. Chaewon apologized in advance if she fell asleep before Jae called. Jae assured her to get home safely, and after ending the call, she reflected that she couldn't tell Chaewon about everything. She feared that if Chaewon found out, she would say she had been right all along. Jae sighed, thinking about how she had no one else to talk to. At that moment, Mr. Che appeared, startling her. He asked what she was doing there and told her to go home. Jae replied, seemingly lost in thought, that she was wondering why life could be so bittersweet. Che, confused, asked if she was drunk. Jae, offering him a seat, asked if he wanted some chips. Che told her to go home once she was done drinking, adding that it sounded like something had gone wrong on her date. Jae, however, denied it, explaining that they had a nice meal and parted ways. Che didn't buy it, pointing out that if it had gone well, Jae would have been smiling and bragging about it. Jae, impressed with his observation, said he was too perceptive. Che then insisted that she tell him what had really happened, claiming that if she didn't, he would never know. Jae hesitated, explaining that if Che confirmed her suspicions, she would only feel more depressed, so she preferred to keep it to herself for now. She assured him it wasn't a big deal and that she would tell him when she was sure. She admitted that she kept wanting to rely on him because he was such a good listener. Che replied that he didn't mind if she did. Meanwhile, Irang the Grim Reaper seemed concerned and commented that they hoped this wasn't what they were thinking it was. Another Grim Reaper, observing from the sidelines, dismissed Irang's worries, suggesting that they were overreacting. Irang responded that a woman's instincts were rarely wrong and she didn't want to dismiss the possibility. The second Grim Reaper, however, argued that even if Irang's suspicions were correct, It wasn't their business and they should just let things unfold. They pointed out that Che wouldn't be able to understand what Jae was feeling unless she told him. Irang agreed, admitting that even if Che figured it out, there was nothing he could do. After all, his work was done, and he wouldn't be able to see her again anyway. Jae was confused and asked Che what he meant by his statement. Che responded by explaining that it was the only way she would be able to live after the 100 days. Jae, realizing she didn't have the time to think about this right now, agreed with him. Che then told her to ask for help when she needed it, reassuring her that he was there for her. A few minutes earlier, Jae had been feeling both uneasy and anxious, but now, thanks to Che's words, she felt completely at ease. Che suggested she should have bought something sweet, and Jae was grateful. Thanks to him, she was no longer feeling uneasy, and the day had ended on a positive note. As Jae finished her drink, Che urged her to hurry up so he could take her home. Jae, slightly exasperated, pointed out that she had barely taken 2 sips of her drink. Still, she felt genuinely happy. Meanwhile, Chaewon was at home, feeling the effects of her hangover. She thought to herself that she had gotten old, and as soon as she got home, she had passed out without calling Jae. She promised to call Jae after work. Just then, Chaewon noticed a message from Yeonsu, and she contemplated ignoring it, cursing herself for not being more careful. Yeonsu, however, had seen Chaewon looking at the message and called out to her. Chaewon, embarrassed, admitted that she was taking a break because of her hangover. Yeonsu, not showing any signs of a hangover herself, teased Chaewon about drinking too much. Chaewon pointed out that Yeonsu didn't seem affected, to which Yeonsu replied that she had an excellent remedy for hangovers. She offered to give Chaewon some when they returned to the office. Chaewon thanked her, but couldn't help feeling drawn to Yeonsu, who reminded her a lot of Jae. Noticing that Yeonsu had been on an important phone call earlier, Chaewon casually asked about it. Yeonsu, a bit surprised, confirmed that it had been her ex-boyfriend calling. He had blocked her number, which Chaewon found a bit odd. Chaewon regretted asking, but it seemed that Yeonsu had no problem sharing the details. Meanwhile, Irang, the Grim Reaper, appeared and asked Che where he was going this time. Che casually replied that he was going to see Jae. Irang seemed surprised and asked what Che wasn't saying. Che questioned why Irang was acting that way, reminding him that Irang had previously told him to keep an eye on Jae at all times. Irang had even agreed to help, so Che wondered what had changed. Irang admitted that while he had told Che to keep an eye on her, it seemed like things were going to end successfully at this rate. He suggested that it might be better for Che not to visit as frequently for situations like this. Che, puzzled, responded that Jae hadn't seemed great the day before, and the industry was refusing to tell him what had happened. Irang, frustrated, asked if Che was even listening, but Che didn't respond. Instead, he decided he should go. Irang called out to him one last time, but Che, uninterested, waved him off. Che thought to himself that Irang had been nagging more than usual. He hoped that Jae might open up to him today since she had had time to process everything. If she didn't, he decided he would need to come up with a plan. As he walked on, he was approached by someone. Raun, someone who Che recognized, greeted him, saying they had met before. Raun explained that she had worked part-time at Jae's cafe and asked if he had some time to talk. Raun then mentioned he would take the same as Che had ordered and asked about the drinks. Che, feeling slightly out of place, wondered why he was even there. Earlier, Raun had told him that it wouldn't take long and just wanted to meet for a few minutes. He had pointed out a cafe nearby and asked Che to join him. As Che sat there, he couldn't help but think that Raun was probably Jae's first love, and most likely still had feelings for her. He debated whether he should help move things along. Irang had suggested bringing back old crushes, as it could provide more options and increase the chances of Jae surviving. But for Che, it wasn't about that. It was all he wanted for Jae. Raun, feeling a bit awkward, apologized for the long wait for the order and explained that he had bought a variety of things because he felt bad for the delay. He asked Che to eat, noting how young he looked. Che, who estimated Raun was probably around 22 now, didn't want to share his own age. He instead replied that it was private and not something he was comfortable sharing. Raun apologized, sensing he might have offended Che. Raun then brought up Jae, asking Che if he liked her romantically, Che, without hesitating, confirmed that Ryan was indeed interested in her. Meanwhile, Jae, who had just heard about this meeting, was confused and asked how and why Che ended up with Ryan in the cafe. Che casually explained that he had run into Ryan on the street and Ryan had recognized him from that one time. Ryan had offered to buy him a drink, so he accepted. Jae, a little concerned, teased him about not following people just because they offer food, to which Chai responded, asking if she thought he was a child. Jae pressed on, asking what they talked about. Che hesitated, saying that it wasn't much, but Jae could sense there was more to it. She pointed out the long pause between his words, suggesting he was hiding something. Che reluctantly answered that he didn't want to tell her and reminded her that she hadn't told him what was wrong with her yesterday either. He added that, based on her behavior today, everything seemed to have worked out. Or maybe she had just decided not to care. It could be one of the two. Jae, admitting that Che was observant, questioned if she was that obvious. Che confirmed that she was very obvious. Jae then revealed that Woobin had asked her to go on a date over the weekend, and after hearing that, she felt foolish for worrying the day before. Che, with a small smirk, commented that he had known it had something to do with Woobin. Jae, smiling, confessed that she and Woobin had only agreed to decide what to do later, but she was excited nonetheless. Che, feeling a strange mix of emotions, muttered to himself that the person who could make Jae smile like that wasn't him. He acknowledged that it was a huge improvement for her. Back at the cafe, Ryan was taken aback by Che's blunt question about his feelings for Jae. He asked what Che was suddenly talking about, clearly startled. Che, calm as ever, replied that he had known for a while and was willing to help Ryan. He just needed to decide if he wanted it or not. Ryan, still unsure of Che's intentions, questioned why Che was suddenly offering his help. Che replied that he had something to gain from it, though he didn't explain further. Ryan, still processing the conversation, admitted that he might have been wrong, but had sworn that Chai had feelings for Jae. Che, unaffected, simply told Ryan to decide what he wanted, as he had already made his mind up. Irang was surprised to hear that Chai had met with Ryan and asked how it had happened. Che casually explained that he had just happened to run into him. Irang, clearly frustrated, scolded him for not hiding his presence during the day. He reminded Che that he had told him multiple times not to wander around in the middle of the day without concealing himself. Che, unfazed, pointed out that people die during the day too. Irang shot back, telling him not to talk back. Che, maintaining his calm, suggested that it might be beneficial to catch both rabbits, referring to giving Jae more options. Irang, however, clarified that he meant offering Jae options, not for Che to get involved personally. Che explained that he had acted on his own because he felt uneasy about Woobin. He believed that having someone who was certain about their feelings for Jae was better, as it would increase her chances of surviving. Irang, though hoping he was wrong, listened quietly. Che promised to still be careful and make sure Ryan didn't find out about him. Irang, observing Che's cluelessness, thought it might be better to let things unfold naturally. He figured that Ryan's obliviousness to his feelings would work in their favor. Irang acknowledged that Che understood the situation somewhat, but reminded him that he needed to submit a detailed report every time they met. Che agreed, confirming that things would work out. Meanwhile, Jae was talking to Woobin, reflecting on how much fun she had at an exhibition. She mentioned that she hadn't been to many, but this one was really enjoyable. Woobin expressed his happiness that she liked it, adding that the exhibit had more than just pictures, it also had sounds and textures to experience. Jae, touched by the thoughtfulness behind his choice, explained how much she liked the part where they replicated the sound of the ocean and created a sandy beach. Woobin, smiling, confessed that he liked that part too, and that it made him want to travel. Jae, mid-sentence as she was about to ask if he liked traveling, accidentally bumped into someone. Woobin quickly reacted, telling her to be careful. The man she bumped into apologized, but Jae reassured him that it was fine. Woobin, concerned, asked if Jae had been hurt, to which she responded that she was okay since Woobin had caught her. Woobin then apologized for touching her suddenly, but Jae assured him that it was fine. She said the situation had happened so quickly that she didn't mind the physical contact. Woobin, noticing how crowded it was, suggested that they hold hands to navigate through the crowd. Jae, agreeing, said that it would be fine. Later, Jae was talking to Chaewon, who noticed that Jae seemed to be replaying the scene with Woobin in her head. Chaewon, teasing her, pointed out that she was probably still in the honeymoon phase, where one person is happy and the other is depressed. Jae, confused, asked why Chaewon was depressed. Chaewon explained that it wasn't her, but her co-worker who had been feeling down. She had accidentally overheard something and ended up giving relationship advice, which wasn't something she was good at. Jae, surprised, laughed and said she couldn't believe her co-worker had asked Chaewon for love advice. Chaewon expressed sympathy, saying that she felt sorry for the co-worker. Chaewon went on to explain that her co-worker had regretted breaking up with her boyfriend and had kept calling him, but he eventually blocked her number. Jae, acknowledging the situation, commented that it was something even a love expert would have trouble advising on. Chaewon agreed, admitting it was hard to know what to say in such a situation. Jae then noted that the co-worker must have really liked the boyfriend to keep trying to contact him even after the breakup. Chaewon, however, revealed that the co-worker had been the one to end the relationship. The co-worker had been transferred to an overseas branch and had wanted to stay there due to her career. Despite dating since college and even planning to get married, they had broken up over a disagreement about her staying overseas. Afterward, things hadn't worked out for her abroad, so she had returned to the Korean branch. Jae, understanding the situation, mentioned that she could empathize with how the ex-boyfriend must have felt, as he probably had his own life and job in Korea. Chaewon, not quite understanding her co-worker's actions, admitted she was a bit confused as well. Jae, impressed, remarked that Chaewon had managed to give advice, even though she wasn't comfortable doing so. Chaewon, blushing slightly, explained that the only reason she had listened to her co-worker's rant was because she reminded her so much of Jae. She mentioned that her co-worker looked like Jae with her face, which made her feel like she couldn't ignore her. She joked that if the co-worker hadn't resembled Jae, she probably wouldn't have listened. Chaewon then asked Jae why her co-worker had broken up with her boyfriend in the first place, leaving Jae speechless and confused. Jae, after finishing her work, thanked her co-worker and said goodbye. Her co-worker, noticing Jae's tiredness, asked if something had happened the previous day. Jae assured her that she was fine and just hadn't been able to sleep. The co-worker, still concerned, recalled how Jae had seemed about to pass out while making orders and offered to close for her if she was too tired. Jae, however, declined, saying it was okay now that the rush was over and that she would take it easy until she felt better. The co-worker reminded her to call if she needed help and left, leaving Jae alone in the cafe. Jae sat quietly, suddenly feeling drowsy now that it had grown quiet. She contemplated whether to have some coffee, but was distracted by her thoughts. After hearing Chaewon's words earlier, Jae found herself confused about how she had gotten home. She also questioned whether the person Chaewon had mentioned was the same one she had seen in connection with Woobin. Everything seemed to line up perfectly. The story Chaewon had told her, as well as the troubled expression she had seen on Woobin's face. What worried her the most was that Woobin hadn't come today. Jae felt frustrated, but there was no one to talk to about it. Irang suddenly appeared, noticing Jae sighing. He remarked that it was unlucky to sigh so much. Jae, startled, cried out in surprise, thinking she had seen a ghost. Irang quickly apologized, explaining that he was the Grim Reaper, and that he sometimes forgot to be discreet due to his usual manner of going around. Jae, still a bit shaken, assured him that she was awake now. She then asked if he had come alone. Irang confirmed that Yoon had gone to the other side today, leaving him on his own. Seizing the opportunity, Jae admitted that she wanted to ask Irang for advice about something. She began to explain the situation, but Irang interrupted, loudly reacting to her words. He recalled that Woobin had seemed troubled by a strange woman who had called him, and that Jae's friend had mentioned someone who wanted to get back with her ex-boyfriend. The similarities in the stories, especially that the woman and her ex had dated for over 5 years and were even planning to marry, caught his attention. Jae wondered aloud if they could be the same person. Irang, after a pause, explained that while many people shared the same name, it was concerning how many similarities there were in the stories. He suggested that Jae simply ask Wooben who the caller had been. Jae hesitated, worrying that Wooben might be upset if she pried into something like that, especially since they weren't dating. Irang acknowledged her concern, but agreed that it would be awkward to ask directly. Jae then reflected that she couldn't bring herself to confront Wooben, especially since they looked so alike. She wondered if she should just let it go, as she wasn't even sure about anything. Irang, meanwhile, was concerned. He thought that if Yoon realized how he felt about the returnee, they might have to intervene. Though no conclusions had been drawn yet, the stories were aligning too perfectly for comfort. Irang decided to investigate further to see if it was truly the same woman. He advised Jae to try asking Wooben without being too obvious. Jae, feeling a bit uneasy, felt better after hearing that Irang would help. She thanked him. Irang, trying to encourage her, told Jae that she needed to toughen up. After all, she had been given a second chance at life, and it was important to be strong. Jae, startled by his sudden words, asked if he was serious. Irang, thinking to himself, wondered how Jae would survive in such a cruel world, with her overly kind nature. Meanwhile, Raun, meeting Chai unexpectedly, questioned if Chai had been spying on him. Che quickly denied it, asking how Raun could think that. Raun, though, seemed curious about how Che knew where he was. Che, brushing it off, said that he was just passing by. Raun then admitted that he had been wondering how they were going to meet up again, since they hadn't exchanged numbers yet. Che suggested that Raun give him his number, and he would call later. Raun, still hesitating, wondered aloud if Che was truly okay with this. He offered to go to a cafe instead, but Che declined, saying it would be better if Raun didn't spend all his time with him. He then asked Raun a question, requesting honesty. He wanted to know why Raun now saw Jae as a romantic interest when, in the past, he had seen her as a little sister. Raun, surprised by the question, denied ever saying that. Che, however, insisted that Raun had mentioned it when he was in high school and that Raun should remember. Raun, after a pause, finally acknowledged that back then he had felt there was no choice but to think of Jae that way. But then, with a sudden realization, he wondered if Jae had overheard him saying that. Che, observing Raun's confusion, kept his thoughts to himself, but couldn't help but wonder about the connection between everything happening around Jae. Jae called out Raun's name as she entered his home, feeling a bit anxious but determined. She thought about how precious Rayon was to her and reflected on her feelings. She never needed her mother's influence to love him. By the time she was old enough to think for herself, she had already developed deep affection for him. She didn't completely understand her mother's insistence on her marrying Rayon, but she thought that if it was him, she would be happy. Curious, Jae asked Raun's mother where he was, only to learn that Raun had been told to come down long ago, but still hadn't appeared. Raun's mom seemed annoyed, mentioning how Raun had become difficult to deal with lately and refused to listen to her. Jae, wanting to spend time with him, offered to take something upstairs to his room. Raun's mother, appreciating Jae's kindness, asked if Jae had experienced any mood swings yet, before shifting to another topic and expressing her concern over Raun's behavior. She then remarked that Jae seemed like the same sweet and kind person she had always been. Jae's mother, overhearing, lightly teased Jae about not changing, and Jae, laughing, made her way upstairs to Raun's room. Upon entering, she greeted Raun, who seemed annoyed that she had barged in. Jae, not backing down, teased him about leaving the door open on purpose, knowing she would come in. Raun complained about her proximity, claiming she was too warm and made him feel hot. Jae laughed, pointing out that the air conditioning was on, and argued that it wasn't even hot. Raun, irritated, told her to get a chair if she wanted to watch the show with him. Jae, eager to join him, said she would get one right away, asking him to wait. Raun, watching Jae's reaction, couldn't help but feel conflicted. He had harbored feelings for her for years, yet he realized that he wasn't the only one who thought she was cute and pretty. He recalled hearing the boys at school talk about Jae, admiring her looks and wondering if she was dating someone. They even mentioned that she had visited Raun recently and looked great, and some seemed impressed by the fact that she and Raun had been friends for over 10 years. Raun, feeling disgusted, could not bear the way they talked about Jia. He thought to himself that he wanted to beat them up, but immediately reconsidered, not wanting Jia to be dragged into the mess. Instead, he insisted that Jia was like a younger sister to him, trying to shut down the conversation. His friends, however, wouldn't let it go, urging him to stop denying that Jia wasn't just a sister to him. Raun became even more upset, feeling like his relationship with Jia was being trivialized and reduced to something perverse. Raun explained to himself that he had repeatedly told everyone that Jia was like a younger sister to him in order to stop them from making inappropriate comments. He admitted that he had grown up watching others make romantic advances toward her, feeling powerless to act. Reflecting on his past, Raun realized that he had probably appeared foolish to everyone for never confessing his feelings to Jia. Che, who had been listening to him, seemed to understand, stating that Raun had dug his own grave by not confessing sooner, which was why he was still struggling with his feelings. Raun explained that Jia had been avoiding him ever since they were high school seniors, and he had eventually given up. He had tried to forget his first love by studying abroad, hoping that distance would help him move on. Che asked Raun why he thought Jia had avoided him, to which Raun responded somewhat sarcastically that Che was making it sound like Jia had ever liked him in high school. Che, undeterred, pointed out that Jia had liked him, but had interpreted his refusal to confess as a form of rejection. She had moved on since then, and now liked someone else. Raun, taken aback by the blunt reality check, responded bitterly, realizing how true Che's words were. Che, seeing his frustration, told him that he should have confessed sooner, which Raun admitted he regretted. He explained that he had been afraid of ruining their friendship, a fear that had held him back. Che, looking at Raun, asked if he was still scared, to which Raun admitted that he was, but now didn't want to live with any regrets. Che, reflecting on Raun's words, wondered what it would be like to have no regrets and to live with the courage to act on his feelings. Irang instructed to search thoroughly and suggested looking through Wubin's phone. The Grim Reaper pointed out that Wubin seemed to be sound asleep and wondered if they should use his finger to unlock it. Suddenly Wubin stirred and asked what was going on, noticing the noise. Irang quickly told them to turn off the lights and hide. Wubin, still half awake, questioned if he was dreaming and wondered if what he had seen was real. Jia, noticing his disheveled state, asked if he had not slept well. Wubin admitted that he hadn't. Jia asked what had happened, speculating that he had been working overtime. Wubin explained that last night while he was sleeping, he heard something and saw people dressed in black in his room. Initially, he thought it was a dream, but the more he thought about it, the more he began to feel uneasy. He admitted feeling embarrassed, revealing that he was afraid of the occult. Jia, feeling sympathetic, expressed her hope that it had just been a dream. Wubin chuckled at himself, finding it a bit funny that he, as an adult, was scared of something like this. Jia reassured him, saying that she too was afraid of ghosts, understanding his fear. She then asked him to wait for 3 minutes while she prepared something. Wubin agreed, mentioning that he wasn't in a rush. Jia handed him yuja tea, suggesting that the warm drink would help him feel less tired. Wubin thanked her, and Jia responded politely, saying it was nothing. Wubin then confessed that he really liked Jia, and said he should get going. Meanwhile, Irang was looking at a photo. Upon reflection, Irang realized that they could have searched Wubin's room after he had gone to work, questioning why they went to the trouble of doing it earlier. Irang mused that the woman who had called Wubin, Yeonsu, was someone he used to date. This woman, Irang thought, reminded him of someone else. Che, who had just entered, asked what Irang was looking at. Startled, Irang exclaimed not to scare him, and Che insisted on seeing what it was. Irang protested, saying that Chai shouldn't snatch other people's things, but Chai ignored him, commenting on the picture of Wubin with a woman who looked strikingly like Jia. Irang then explained that the woman reminded him of the returnee, calling Wubin a jackass. Che, sensing something was off, asked if Jia had told him something. Irang admitted that Jia hadn't told him anything, but there was more to the situation. Later, Jia reflected on Woobin's words about his office visit, feeling like she had been on cloud nine all day. She regretted not dressing more nicely that morning, but what she needed most was confirmation about their relationship. She felt uneasy because she wasn't confident about what they were to each other. Since they weren't officially a couple, she couldn't directly ask him about it. However, she thought that once she figured out where they stood, she could bring up the phone call and get clarity on it. It wouldn't be too late to ask him. Just as Jia was about to reach out to Woobin, Yeonsu suddenly appeared and confronted him, accusing him of blocking her number. Woobin, surprised, called out her name. Before Jia could confirm anything about her and Woobin's relationship, their dynamic took a turn, leaving her uncertain about what to do next. Woobin was clearly upset and asked Yeonsu why she was holding onto his arm, demanding that she let go. However, Yeonsu refused, insisting that they needed to talk. Jia, witnessing this, asked what was happening. Woobin, sounding frustrated, told Jia that Yeonsu was being ridiculous, apologizing for the scene. He explained that it must have surprised Jia. Jia, though startled, reassured him that she was fine, though she couldn't help but recall what Chaewon had said to her earlier. Yeonsu, feeling emotional, apologized and explained that her actions were driven by her feelings. Jia reflected on her thoughts, thinking to herself that when she had a bad feeling about something, there often turned out to be a reason behind it. After returning home, Jia recalled how Yeonsu had looked at her, feeling uneasy about the situation. Yeonsu continued to insist that they needed to talk, but Woobin, growing more irritated, told her that he had already made it clear he had nothing to say to her and that he had plans. Yeonsu, however, didn't care about his plans and demanded that they talk immediately. Woobin, exasperated, began to speak, but Jia interrupted, telling him that it was okay and that he should talk things out with Yeonsu. She added that he could call her later and told him to get home safely. Jia, unsure whether she had made the right decision by letting the two of them go, lay in bed, reflecting on the events. She wasn't sure how to feel, but once she saw Yeonsu, she felt there was no way she could talk to Woobin and pretend like nothing had happened. Despite everything, Woobin didn't call her. Jia found herself feeling calmer after some sleep. It was still early, and since she didn't have to open the cafe that day, she decided to sleep more. Just then she was startled to hear someone call her name. It was Mr. Che. She asked why he was standing on the veranda instead of coming through the door. Che explained that after filling out the register and finishing his work guiding the souls, it had become early morning. Knowing that Jia was likely sleeping, he had no choice but to check on her. When he saw her get back into bed, he had rushed to stop her. Jia, slightly surprised, asked if he had planned to enter one way or another. Che admitted that he had planned to come the day before, but was stopped by Irang. Jia, sensing that Che had likely heard about what had happened, confirmed that he must have heard it from Irang. Che, frustrated by the situation, called Woobin crazy and asked Jia if she was okay. Jia confessed that she wasn't sure what she was feeling, whether it was anger, betrayal, or sadness. Che reassured her that her feelings were completely understandable. Jia, conflicted, mentioned that she wasn't sure if she could just ignore what had happened. She wondered if she could dismiss everything and date Woobin anyway, but questioned if she could truly be happy if she did. Che, encouraging her, told her to get a hold of herself and cheer up. Jia, feeling embarrassed, asked what that was all about. Che explained that he was simply trying to cheer her up and assured her that, regardless of what happened, he would respect her decision. Jia, trying to shift the mood, offered Che 5 free cakes if he came to the cafe that day. She then thought to herself that talking to Woobin was still something she had planned to do, but she wasn't sure how to proceed. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, and Yeonsu appeared, apologizing for showing up unannounced. She explained that she wanted to talk to Jia. Jia, surprised by her sudden appearance, wondered what Yeonsu was doing there. Jia was surprised and wondered how Yeonsu knew where the cafe was and how she knew her name. Yeonsu explained that she had asked Chaewon about Jia, recalling that Chaewon had once mentioned a friend who looked like her. Yeonsu had never imagined that the friend Chaewon spoke of would turn out to be Jia. Jia realized that Chaewon had indeed said something like that before, but hadn't been fully aware of the connection. Yeonsu confessed that she had made up an excuse to come to the cafe just to meet Jia. Jae, still confused, asked why Yeonsu had felt the need to see her so badly. Yeonsu, with a serious expression, requested that Jae stop dating Woobin. Jae, taken aback, snapped back, saying that she didn't think Yeonsu had the right to tell her that. She pointed out that, from what she had heard, Yeonsu and Woobin were no longer dating. Yeonsu confirmed this, but added that they still had a shared history, something that could not be erased easily. Jae, frustrated, asked how Yeonsu could bring this up now. Yeonsu explained that she understood how baffling it must be for Jae, as an ex-girlfriend, to ask the current person dating her ex to stop seeing him. She admitted that their breakup was due to her career, but she still loved him. Seeing that Woobin was interested in Jae, who looked so much like her, led Yeonsu to believe that he still had feelings for her. Jae, quietly observing, wondered if Yeonsu realized how much they resembled each other. Yeonsu shared that she and Woobin had started dating 7 years ago, during which time she was everything to him. She warned Jae that people would notice their striking resemblance and questioned how she would handle it. Jae, reflecting deeply, replied that time moves forward, and eventually even the most intense periods of life fade into the past. She believed that her situation was different, though, and she had already made up her mind about it. Suddenly, Woobin entered the cafe, calling Jae's name. She, concerned, asked if he was okay, noting that he looked as though he hadn't slept. Woobin apologized for rushing, explaining that he didn't want to keep her waiting. Jae, observing him, understood that he must have been troubled by the events the day before, and while she was angry, she was still understanding of his situation. Jae, with a heavy heart, told Woobin that they should stop seeing each other. She explained that their relationship had never really been defined, they were neither friends nor lovers, and she didn't want to continue it anymore. She apologized for springing this on him so suddenly. Woobin, clearly confused, thought that Jae was bringing up the events from the previous day. Jae, conflicted, considered whether she should hear him out and continue dating him until their relationship became more serious. But she quickly dismissed the idea. She realized that despite her deep feelings for him, she couldn't ignore the situation. Jae then thought to herself that if Woobin had explained things to her after talking to Yeonsu, she might have been able to accept whatever reasons he gave. But now, everything felt meaningless. She had liked him so much, but the situation had made her feel foolish. She wondered if it was possible to stop liking someone over something like this. She also knew that she didn't have much time left, thinking that the Grim Reaper would probably lecture her about being an idiot. She felt like she had made a huge mistake, unable to even get herself a boyfriend. Frustrated, she decided she needed a drink to calm her nerves. Later, Chae rang the doorbell but got no response. He wondered why Jae wasn't answering, especially since the lights were on. He grew concerned when he saw all the empty bottles and glasses around her. Worried that Jae might get sick, he called out to her to get up. Jae, still lying there, greeted him and said, "Mr. Chae, you won't believe what I did today." Chae, curious, asked what had happened. Jae, sounding both relieved and upset, confessed that she had ended things with Woobin. Chae, shocked, repeated, "Really? Wait, what?" Jae, a bit flustered, said she had made up her mind quickly. Chae, trying to be supportive, reassured her that it was fine as long as she was okay, but he asked again if she truly was okay. Jae, fighting back emotions, admitted that she wasn't okay at all. She explained that she really liked Woobin and wasn't sure what to do now. Chae, comforting her, told her that everything would be okay in the end. Jae seemed quite down, and it appeared difficult for her to be cheerful in that moment. Irang noticed her mood and commented that if he were in her place, he probably wouldn't have left the house for a week. He still couldn't quite understand Woobin's actions, although he admitted he was surprised that the returnee had decided to break things off with him. Chae, on the other hand, observed that while Jae might seem soft, she was surprisingly strong-willed. Irang added that Jae was probably better off this way. If she had continued dating Woobin, it would have only led to more complications. Once doubt and suspicion start to creep in, it's hard to ignore, and he understood why the returnee had made the decision to end things. Chae, while agreeing that Jae's decision made sense, was concerned that she wasn't okay. Rayon, overhearing the conversation, expressed that he had sensed something was off with Jae lately and had been worried about her. Chae then asked if Rayon felt relieved about Jae and Woobin breaking up. Raon quickly clarified that while there might be a small part of him that felt a bit of relief, he wasn't happy about it because Jae was upset, and that was what mattered most. Che agreed with Raon's feelings and said he hoped Jae would feel better soon. He encouraged Raon to go cheer her up, as he wanted to see Jae smile again. Raon, though he didn't show much excitement, assured Chai that he was planning to visit her anyway. Soon after, Raon arrived at Jae's house, determined to cheer her up. He greeted her energetically, suggesting they go out and have some fun. Jae, initially reluctant, explained that she had planned to stay home and rest for the day. Raon, understanding her need to sleep in, mentioned that he had come at noon so she could take her time to relax. He told her to get ready. Jae, still feeling a bit sluggish, expressed her frustration about not having eaten yet and teased Raon for not calling ahead. Raon, ever prepared, handed her some food and suggested she eat slowly to avoid feeling sick during the drive. Curious about their plans, Jae asked where they were headed, surprised by how much Raon had prepared. Raon smiled and told her they were going somewhere that would make her happy, assuring her to trust him and put her seatbelt on. Jae responded skeptically, hoping it would be worth it. As they drove, Raon commented that the ocean breeze was a bit chilly, to which Jae responded with excitement, mentioning that she hadn't been to the beach in ages. Raon smiled, mentioning how great it was that the Yellow Sea was so close to the city. He explained that visiting places with nice views was a good way to lift one's spirits. Jae, surprised that he knew she was feeling down, asked how he figured it out. Raon laughed and said that he had known her for so long that he could tell how she was feeling just by reading her texts. He added that even his mom and Jae were concerned about her. Jae, feeling a bit caught off guard, admitted she thought she had been doing a good job hiding it. Raon, however, gently scolded her, asking why she felt the need to hide her feelings from him. He reassured her that if she did, he could always take her out whenever she was feeling down. He then asked if she felt better after their outing, and Jae smiled, thanking him for being there. Che, watching from afar, noticed Jae's smile and felt relieved. He was happy to see that she was finally looking more at ease. Jae commented on how much fun she had. She praised the delicious food, the nice cafe, and even the stuffed animal she had won from the claw machine. She declared that it was the best outing. Raon, with a grin, joked that she should thank him for being so awesome. Jae, laughing, teasingly replied that since she was older, he should be the one thanking her. She then joked about how long he would continue treating her like his younger sister. Raon, surprised by her comment, responded earnestly, saying he had never thought of her as a sister. Jae, caught off guard by his serious reaction, paused and wondered why he would say that. His response made her feel a little curious and unsure, leaving her to reflect on their friendship in a way she hadn't before.